Probando. Hello, hello. 1, 2, 3. Eh, hello, hello.
Hello.
1, 2, 3. How are you
Eh,
doing, guys? How are you doing, guys? This is the Alpha Master, and today we are going to go over the topics to be able to pass the National Council for Certified Personal Trainers Accredited exam. This exam is going to be of 140 multiple choice questions, from which 125 are going to count towards your grade, and you need a 75% or more to be able to get certified. It's a 2 hour exam, no book, no open notes. It's closed book, closed notes. You're not allowed to use anything else than your brain to be able to pass this exam, and it is important to be ready for it. If you are right now in the ISSA program, then you have a lot of material that can help you out to be able to be ready for this exam. You have the textbook, you have a workbook. The workbook is this one right here. As you can see, I've already completed it, and it's really, really helpful to be able to know all of the material that is going, or and the terminology that is going to be important towards this specific exam. And you also have videos from each of the chapters. It's going to be 18 chapters in total if you're taking the ISSA CPT modules. And finally, you have the let me check because I kind of forgot what it was called. The CPT bootcamp. I remember before watching it. The CPT bootcamp, which is going to be 5 weeks of 1 hour videos, detailing like important terminology from different chapters that you're gonna need for the final exam. This is, in my opinion, what helps me best understand what I have to study. This is only 5 videos, but I really recommend watching them. These ones are gonna be the office hours where you can ask all of your questions. As you can see, it's already over. The other one that I was talking about is gonna be the learning experience. It literally details each of the chapters in each of the models. I already watched all of them, and it's going to be 10 models in total. Some of them has 2 chapters, one of them has 3 chapters, and some of them have one, but in total it's 18 chapters that you have to watch. For today, we are going to be going over the outline of what is going to be on this exam, and finally we're going to review important terminology and topics from chapters 2, 3, and 4, which are going to be the first 3 chapters. All of them have to do with anatomy, kinesiology, and psychology, which is 25% of your weight, of your grade. Chapter 2 is psychology of behavioral change. Chapter 3 has to do with movement systems, and chapter 4 is supporting systems. So, without further ado, let's get started. First, let me see if you guys can hear me. 1 hour videos detailing like important terminology from different chapters. All right, perfect. It is on. It is on. There's no problems. There is nothing that I have to worry about. Okay. This is gonna be the NCCPT 35 personal trainer detailed content outlined based on a 2020 job analysis study. So for this exam, 25% of your grade is going to be on applied science, which is going to be the anatomy, kinesiology, and physiology. For anatomy, you need to know apply the basic knowledge of the muscular system. So you need to know the fascia, the tendons, and the muscles. You need to know each of the muscles, but like not specifically. Like can go from big to small. Like for example, you definitely need to learn like deltoid, the trapezius back here, that the latissimus dorsi, the pectoralis major, the abdominal muscle. So the muscle regions, and then this is from upper body. For lower body, you have the biceps femoris, the gastrocnemius, the soleus, the hamstrings muscles, the the ones of the quadriceps muscles, uh, the tibialis anterior, the hips, the pelvis. So some muscles that are definitely important, and others not so much, but definitely muscles is something that you definitely have to focus on. Then the basic knowledge of the nervous system, you have two: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. and that's definitely very important, and we're going to go over that today. And then basic knowledge of the skeletal system has to do with the bones and the ligaments, which connects the bones to the muscles. That's for anatomy. And functional anatomy, you have to identify primary mover versus secondary mover. So the agonist, which is the muscle that goes uh, with the force that you're doing, antagonist, the opposite muscle, and then the synergist, the muscle helper. Identify the muscle groups involved in exercises and relate the muscle groups with specific exercises. Definitely, it's so important as part of the biomechanics chapter, where you have an exercise and you have to relate it to the muscle groups with a specific exercise. And we're gonna go over exercises when we go over chapters 7, 8, and 9. Client assessments and elemental fit and principle of problem design. That's when we're gonna connect like the muscles that you already know with the exercises. Now, anatomical locations, definitely so important parts of biomechanics. Anterior, frontal part of your body, posterior, the back side of your body. This is the posterior side right here. Lateral, this is lateral. Identify common muscle injury relationships. So how it relates to injury, like how you get injured, like for example, you break your ankle. So what muscle injury relationship that is if you break your ankle? You are definitely breaking like the lower part of your leg, and that's something that muscle injury relationships is something that you need to know for this case, and that we're gonna go over that as well. Now, differentiate between the types of joints. There are different types of joints that we're going to go over today as well. Analyze how the muscular and skeletal systems work together to perform movement. It's very important. The muscular and skeletal system allow us to move. Now, evaluate the relationship between the joints and muscles during exercise. So there is definitely a relationship between the joints and the muscles that are done for exercise. That's something that we are going to go over when we go to those chapters. Exercise selection and technique is very, very important. Chapter 13, where we're going to go over that. And finally, recognize the major kinetic chains. There are 6 kinetic chains in total. For example, like foot, ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, neck. Foot, ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, and neck. So that's something that we definitely need to look over as well. Now, biomechanics. That's for functional anatomy. Those are for functional anatomy. Now, for biomechanics, the study of human motion. So, identify the different planes of motion. That's going to be in chapter 5. You have the frontal plane, you have the sagittal plane, the frontal plane, which is divides the body into anterior and posterior halves. The sagittal plane divides it in left and right halves, and transverse plane divides it in the top and the bottom halves. That's very important. I already knew that. The people from the ISSA say videos told me to know this like a long time ago, so it's something that is stuck in my brain. Luckily, now identify joint motions and muscle actions. So the joint motions and muscle actions are for part of biomechanics of abduction, movement away from the body, extension. You're extending, flexion. You are flexing, right? You're flexing. Concentric, eccentric, and isometric movements. Contraction, then eccentric and isometric. We're going to go over those terms today. Identify how mechanical principles apply to the human body. That's another one. Identify how mechanical principles apply to the human body, like range of motion, angles, and levers. That's something for chapter 5 as well. And now, energy systems. That's all about chapter 6. Explain how the body uses fuel and creates energy. You have the calorie intake output, the basal metabolic rate, the total daily energy expenditure, TDEE. This is all going to be from chapter 6. Identify the different energy systems of the body. There are different energy systems of the body that you have to identify. There are the ATPCP, glycolytic, and oxidative energy systems. And finally, explain the benefits of anaerobic training. The anaerobic, which is without oxygen, anaerobic with oxygen training. Anaerobic is going to be ATP, CP, and glycolytic training. Anaerobic is oxidative training. We're going to go over that as well in chapter 6. And physiology. The last part is going to be physiology. So identify the physiological changes or benefits that result from exercise. So there are physiological changes and benefits that result from exercise that we're going to go over. Now, the identify the physiological response when performing exercise, like heart rate, the blood pressure, the hormonal response. I believe this is all from the reporting systems from chapter 4. And understand the theory behind muscle movements. There are different theories behind muscle movements, like the sliding filament theory, where you go over actin and myosin interacting together. Then you have the all or none theory or the Henneman theory, the size principle or motor unit recruitment. And finally, differentiate between muscle fiber types and how they react to exercise. There are different muscle fiber types, and you need to differentiate between those fiber types and how they react to exercise. Definitely, that's something that is in the workbook as well. That's going to be the applied science examination weight of the exam. That's 25% of your exam. Then we have other topics. So remember, for applied science, you have anatomy, functional anatomy, biomechanics, the study of human motion, the energy systems, and you have physiology. Now, for nutrition is 10% of your grade. There's only two chapters that are focused on nutrition. It's chapter 14 and 15, nutrition foundations, and chapter 15 is about supplementation. So you have general nutrition information, which defines the basic nutritional and dietary guidelines. Then nutrition information where you have to define the basic nutritional and dietary guidelines. You have to define the macro and micronutrients and explain how they are used by the body, and define the difference between supplements and ergogenic aids, which is the chapter of supplementation. Performance enhancing drugs, collected substance, the general nutrition information. Now, client dietary habits. Obtain an understanding of a client's dietary habits, assess shortcomings in a client's diet, and assess caloric intake relative to client's needs. And finally, nutritional guidance. Offer basic nutritional education and guidance. Educate clients regarding food labels and portion sizes. Educate clients regarding current diet trends like fasting or fat diets, and educate clients regarding supplements and ergogenic aids. It's going to be performance enhancing drugs and controlled substances. So all of that, the general nutritional information, the client dietary habits, and the nutritional guidance, that's all going to be part of the nutrition segment of that test, which is only 10%. So the focus on this portion is not going to be as strong as the anatomy, kinesiology, and physiology portion, which is 25% of the examination weight. Now, the third portion is going to be intake and ongoing evaluation. It's 15%. So there are going to be a little more questions about intake and ongoing evaluation. So there's three topics for this one. You have to collect and review all necessary documentation like medical release, medical history, liability waiver. You need to conduct a basic fitness assessment. So the fitness assessments, I believe, is going to be the fitness assessment chapters is chapter 8, elements of fitness, or chapter 9, principle of program design. We're going to go over that. The postural, performance, movement, strength, cardiovascular, flexibility, body composition. Those are the basic fitness assessments. And finally, interpret results of all assessments. You need to interpret the results of all assessments in relation to clients' goals, like the comparison to the general population, initial assessment versus ongoing assessment. We're going to go over that as well. That's 15%. Intake and ongoing evaluation is 15% of your grade. Now, the other one that is really heavily weight is going to be program design and implementation, because as part of every personal trainer, they need to know how to do program design, how to implement the workout for a specific client. So that's 25%. So you have three parts in here. The first one is principles of program design, which is going to be chapter 9, principles of program design. So apply principles of specificity for clients to achieve goals like hypertrophy, cardiovascular endurance, and lean body mass changes. Evaluate and integrate applications for the general adaptation syndrome, which is the GAS principle, which has to do with the alarm stage, the resistance stage, and the exhaustion stage. So I will integrate applications for the general adaptation syndrome. And finally, identify when to apply undulating versus linear periodization. So when to apply undulating versus linear periodization, which definitely we're going to go over in chapter 9. Now, the B is going to be program design activities. So you have program design activities like design a balanced functional program that includes the Design a balanced functional program that includes the basic components of fitness. Apply, Design a balanced functional program that includes the basic components of fitness. Yeah, we're gonna go over that as well. I just don't remember where I saw this. Program design activities, design a balanced functional program that includes the basic components of fitness. Now, apply injury prevention protocols in program design, like static and dynamic stretching, foam rolling, warm-up and cool-down protocols. This is gonna be something that we're gonna see in flexibility training. It's a part of the concept of flexibility training in chapter 10. Apply different variables or training techniques like this has to do with acute training variables like intensity and volume, frequency, repetition range, sets, rest, time under tension, and tempo. It's part of the acute training variables, and then that's like I believe it's chapter 9, principle of program design, if I'm not mistaken. And then chapter 9, and then 4 is going to be apply the findings of fitness assessments to program design. So you have to apply the findings of the fitness assessment to the program design, like equipment selection, movement, exercise selection. uh, Apply the findings of fitness assessments, apply the findings of the fitness assessment to the program design, like equipment selection, movement, exercise selection. And now C is going to be program implementation. How do you implement it? Implement and adjust exercise program based on clients' goals, like training and checking schedules. Recommend training modifications for special populations. We go over special populations in chapter 17 and chapter 16. Prenatal youth arthritic hypertensive. And then we have to identify and develop specific techniques. Identify and develop specific techniques like regressions, progressions, modifications to match the ability of the client. Consult the client regarding flexibility, range of motion practices like static and dynamic stretching and foam rolling, and evaluate the client's cardiovascular health in order to help reach client's goals. Exercise selection. Now, the fifth section and examination weight is exercise selection, technique, and training instruction, which is 15%. And for this one, you already have corrective technique and monitor client as topics for this examination weight. For corrective technique, uh, I remember exercise selection and technique is actually like a chapter which is chapter 13. This is going to be chapter 13 in your textbook, exercise selection technique and training instruction. Corrective techniques, so educate client regarding technique and form, which is going to be the coaching cues, which has to do with like kinesthetic. Kinesthetic is when you can touch the client with his permission, of course. Visual, which is like showing the client how the technique is due, and then uh, auditory, which is like you coach the client through it, you tell the client how to do it. Educate client regarding technique and form. Correct technique, correct technique on kinetic chain checkpoints, like correct posture, use verbal and non-verbal cues, and finally correct muscular imbalances and incorrect posture and technique. And B is going to be to monitor the client, evaluate the client's progress using multiple measures like energy level, sleep quality, changes in appearance and measurements. You need to evaluate the client's progress using multiple measures like energy level, sleep quality, changes in appearance measurements because in life, sometimes there is progression and regression and some clients are not going to feel the same way in every exercise. Now, apply coaching cues to evaluate the client's technique and form. Example are going to be the range of motion, the intensity, the speed, and the symmetry. Inform the client regarding recovery, rest, overtraining, and when to stop exercise. So you need to inform a client regarding recovery, when to recover, when to rest, when you're overtraining, and when to stop your exercising. And finally, monitor and modify intensity during cardiovascular activity based on the client's physical abilities. Monitor and modify the intensity during the cardiovascular activity based on the client's physical abilities. Monitor and modify intensity during cardiovascular activity based on the client's physical abilities. Now, professional practice and responsibility is going to be the last section, which is going to be 10% of your exam. And here you have the scope of practice, ethics, legal, marketing and selling, and trainer and client safety. For scout practice, you have to recognize professional duties and responsibilities as outlined by the sanctioning organizations like punctuality, appearance, hygiene, safety, keeping current with the practice. We have to recognize when to refer clients to others, like outside resources, other colleges, medical professionals. Recognize current and evolving technologies trends to train and communicate with client based on clients' needs. And finally, you need to motivate and educate clients to pursue and continue a healthy lifestyle. Motivate and educate the clients to pursue and continue a healthy lifestyle. That's going to be the scope of practice of a personal trainer. Ethics, you need to recognize ethical boundaries like sexual harassment, uh, fraternization, fraternization outside session hours. So you just cannot have like, you cannot have a relationship with the clients that go above your your professional scope of practice. You need to be professional at your relationship with your client. And you need to evaluate applications of the codes of conduct, like conflicts of interest. Evaluate applications of the codes of conduct, like conflicts of interest and discussing sensitive topics. So like with the client, you like the scope of practice is pretty much you teach the client how to do the exercises, you know a little bit of nutrition, but you do not you cannot be a personal trainer that is going to be talking about things that are not part of your knowledge. You cannot tell the client what to eat. You cannot tell the client like about medications. You cannot talk about the client about medications or how to fix like a problem that they have outside of your scope of practice. You need to evaluate like what specifically is a personal trainer's job and do as your degree or your certification says. Don't go beyond it. It's very important. So ethics gonna recognize ethical boundaries like sexual harassment, fraternization, outside session hours, and evaluate applications of codes of conduct like conflicts of interest, discussing sensitive topics, discussing sensitive subjects. So you cannot be talking about your client about politics, for example. You need to you need to be sensitive or religion. This is about professionalism. Now, legal. Recognize liability and insurance policies practices. This is for legal. Recognize liability and insurance policies practices and ensure contract terms and cancellation policies are clear to the client. So this is for a business. This chapter 18 is business and marketing. The legal portion is going to be to recognize the liability and insurance policies and practices and ensure contract terms and cancellation policies are clear to the client. Now, the marketing and selling, also part of Chapter 18, business and marketing, uh, apply various means of market and communication with the intent to sell personal training services like text, mails, phone calls, friends and family referrals, websites, email campaigns, social media, and build and nurture relationships in order to retain clients. This is something that I really like about this course, that it actually teaches you how to improve your business as a personal trainer if you have a personal business, and it teaches a little bit of marketing techniques to be able to recommend your product and your services to new clients so you can expand your business. And then the trainer and client safety. And the last one is going to be trainer and client safety. Trainer and client safety is going to be the last one. Trainer and client safety, which is part of the last chapter, chapter 19, safety and emergency situations. So follow safety checklist, active ongoing monitoring of client during session. You have to proactively identify risk factors, identify risk indicators like awareness of the environment, trip hazards, cleaning and sanitation, according to current public health recommendations. Apply proper procedure to document incident reports apply emergency event protocols like know when to call 911 and activate the EMS, and finally locate and use emergency tools like first aid kit, the AED, the fire extinguisher, emergency exit locations. So remember that in order to be a certified personal trainer, you also need to have a CPR AED certification apart from your personal trainer certification. Even like when taking this exam, they require you to already have your CPR card before taking it. So make sure you have it. So that was the trainer and client safety, and that was the overall scope of practice, ethics, legal, marketing and selling, and trainer and client safety. All of that are part of the professional practice and responsibility portion of the exam, which is only 10%. So it's like nutrition, like 10%, like nutrition and professional practice and responsibility, like all of them combined, are not as weight as anatomy, for example, like applied science, anatomic and physiology, applied science, or the other one that is very important, program design and implementation, like both of them together are 25%. So there are six different sessions. All of them cover the 19 chapters of the textbook. In fact, no, it's 18 because chapter one is not really talked about. Chapter one is health, fitness, and personal training. It's like the introduction of personal training, personal training history, what is health, what is fitness. But like overall, like these 18 chapters, they cover all that you have to see in the exam. That's why it's very important that you do your workbook, because in the workbook, it like pretty much summarizes the most important topics that you need to learn for each of those chapters. And after completing it, it's like a way to make your brain like be able to have like retention from the information that you already saw. So if you were able to complete this, like I already did, and while we study, we're also going to go over the workbook, because it's important to know to focus on the material that is going to be on the exam. Then you're going to be able to have a higher advantage over those people that do not do the workbook in the exam, because in the workbook you have everything that you need. For example, in here you have the like this rib chart is so important for nervous system. So the nervous system is brain spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system with motor nerves are afferent, three nerves are afferent. Like all of these are material that we're going to be looking at for this review. And by the way, just so that it is clear, I am not a teacher. I am not a certified professional. I am a student that have decided to pursue a personal training certification career. I'm already certified. Uh, I already have a certification. It's right here. I got it back in March. I already passed the online exam, but we're trying to get ready for the accredited exam, which is something that I definitely looking forward to do in the future. The accredited exam, and this is information that is helpful for the accredited exam specifically. So let's see how this is. 28 minutes already. Yeah. Thank you for the like, whoever watched the video and liked the video. Thank you. Anyways, so the other topic that I wanted to talk about is the glossary of terms. These are like important terms that we're gonna go over today as well. Uh, and every 50 minutes, we're gonna take a break of 10 minutes to be able to have a better brain retention of the information that we're looking at. So these are some of the terms that we learn. So we're gonna go over them in a bit. Hold on. And we're also gonna go over terms for each of the chapters. So abduction is gonna be movement of the body part of a body part. Abduction is movement of a body part away from the midline of the body. Abduction is away from the midline of the body. Abduction is moving up. Adduction is movement toward or beyond the midline of the body uh, in the frontal plane. So adduction is when you get closer toward or beyond the midline of the body in the frontal plane. Agonist is a contracted muscle that is resisted or contracted by another muscle, the antagonist. The agonist is the muscle that is working when you're a contracted muscle that is resisted or contracted by another muscle, the antagonist is going to be the agonist. Androgen is going to be any substance that aids in the development and controls the appearance of male characteristics. Androgen is a male hormone. Any substance that aids in the development and controls the appearance of male characteristics. Antagonist is then going to be the muscle that produces an action that is exactly the opposite of the agonist. Antagonist is going to be a muscle that produces an action that is exactly the opposite of the agonist. An example, if you do like a biceps curl, the agonist is going to be the bicep, the antagonist is going to be the tricep because it's opposite to the bicep motion. So muscle that produces an action that is exactly the opposite of the agonist. Anterior is going to be before or in front of. This is going to be anterior. Anterior tilt is going to be the forward tilt of the pelvic girdle. Anterior tilt is going to be the forward tilt of the pelvic girdle. Assistant mover, a muscle that aids the prime mover to effect joint movement. Asymmetry of the body, a lack of symmetry of sides of the body. Asymmetry in the body is going to be a lack of symmetry. Asymmetry is a lack of symmetry of size of the body. Atrophy is a wasting or decrease in size of an organ, tissue, or body part owing to disease, injury, or lack of use. Now, axilla is the armpit. Biomechanics, a branch of study that applies the laws of mechanics to living organisms and tissues. Bursa, a sac or sac-like bodily cavity, especially one containing viscous lubricating fluid, located between a tendon and a bone, or at points of friction between moving structures. Bursitis, bursitis is inflammation of a bursa. Now, calisthenics. Calisthenics is exercise performed without weights or outside resistance designed to develop muscular tone and promote physical well-being. So calisthenics is any exercise that is done without weights or outside resistance designed to develop muscular tone and promote physical well-being. Now, chiropractor is the one who practices a method of restoring normal conditions by adjusting the segments of the spine. Chiropractor is the one who practices a method for restoring the chiropractor is the person that practices a method for restoring normal condition by adjusting the segments of the spine. The one who practices a method or for restoring normal conditions by adjusting the segments of the spine. So you're going to refer to a chiropractor when your spine, the spine of a person is not is not the way that it should be, like firm. It's not contracting the way it should. Now, circumduct is the act of moving a limb in a circular manner. Circumduct is the act of moving a limb in a circular manner like this. Circumduct. I'm circumducting right now. The act of moving a limb in a circular manner. Concentric contraction. Concentric contraction is when a muscle overcomes resistance, causing the muscle to shorten and the joint angle to be reduced. It's concentric contraction when a muscle overcomes resistance, causing the muscle to shorten and the joint angle to be reduced. Contralateral is situated on the opposite side. So contralateral, for example, my right hand is opposite side to my left foot. It's contralateral. It's part of the biomechanics terminology of, of motion. Situated on the opposite side. Cranial. Cranial refers to the head or the skull. Depression is downward movement of a part of the body. It's not that you're depressed. It's not the psychological term. It's depression is like the anatomical term, which is a downward movement of a part of the body. Depression. So you're moving down. Downward movement of a part of the body. Distal, farthest away from the point of reference. Distal is when you go farther away from the point of reference. It's distal. Dorsal is pertaining to the posterior portion of a body or segment. So a dorsal is going to be pertaining to the posterior portion of a body or segment. So dorsal. So dorsal is the posterior part, pertaining to the posterior portion of a body or segment. Dorsiflexion, bending the body part towards the rear, opposite of plantar flexion. So dorsiflexion is bending the body part towards the rear, opposite to plantar flexion. All of these are going to see in the biomechanics chapter, by the way. Dorsum, the upper outer surface of an organ, appendage or body part. So dorsum is going to be the upper outer surface of an organ, appendage, or body part, the dorsum part. So it's like my skin is the dorsum part of my body, the upper outer surface of an organ, appendage, or body part. Downward rotation, movement of the scapula as the arms are lowered and the superior border of the scapula moves away from the midline of the spine. So downward rotation is a movement of the scapula, and as the arms movement of the scapula as the arms are lowered and the superior border of the scapula moves away from the midline or the spine. Eccentric muscle action or eccentric contraction when the resistance develops sufficient elevation. Upward movement of a body. I don't know what the fuck happened here. I don't know what the fuck happened here, to be honest, bro. Let me look it up. Look it up. It's a type of strength. Yeah, I'm just gonna. Eccentric training is a type of strength training that involves using the target muscles to control weight as it moves in a downward motion. All right, we're gonna look at it in the chapter anyway. So elevation is gonna be the upward. So elevation is the opposite of depression. Elevation is the upward movement of a body part. Exercise is a physical activity, the purpose of which is to improve some component of physical fitness. Expiration, exhalation of is gonna be expiration. Your expiration is exhalation of extension, the act of straightening or extending a limb, the position assumed by an extended limb is going to be extension, the act of strengthening or extending a limb, the position assumed by an extended limb, external rotation, an outward clockwise rotation of a bone away from the midline of the body. That's going to be external rotation. An outward clockwise rotation of a bone away from the midline of the body. Eversion is going to be the movement of the foot away from the midline of the body at an ankle, at the ankle joint. Also see pronation. So eversion is like pronation, the movement of the foot away from the midline of the body at the ankle joint. Flexion, a movement resulting in reduction of a joint angle. Flexion is a movement resulting in the reduction of a joint angle. Horizontal abduction, the movement of the arms from horizontally across the body starting from a position where the shoulders are flexed at 90 degrees, hands extended in front of the body, moving in the transverse plane to end in a position where the arms are flexed at 90 degrees out, out to the side of the body. So the movement of the arms from the horizontal across the body. So the position where the shoulders are flexed at 90 degrees, hands extended. So like this, like this, like this. I got it. Like this. Moving in the transverse planes to end in a position where the arms are flexed at 90 degrees out of the side of the body, out to the side of the body. Now, hyperextension is an extreme hyperextension, an extreme stretching or extension of a body part beyond the normal range. Hypertrophy, enlargement of a body part due to an increase in the size of its cells. Hypertrophy, enlargement of a body part due to an increase in the size of its cells. Hyperventilation is going to be abnormal prolonged breathing that causes a depletion of carbon dioxide that fall in blood pressure and possible fainting. Hyperventilation is part of an asthma, uh, of an asthma. How do you say, like it's part of like when somebody has asthma, somebody the cause of asthma is like hyperventilation. Abnormal prolonged deep breathing that causes depletion of carbon dioxide, a fall in blood pressure, and possible fainting. Now, idiopathic cause of injury unknown. When you are idiopathic, when you're an idiot, no, it doesn't have a T though. When you're idiopathic, that means that the cause of the injury is unknown. So I'm idiopathic. I have an idiopathic injury. I don't know where it came from. Iliac refers to the area of the hip bones on either side of the body. Iliac refers to the area of the hip bones on either side of the body. We're going to go over that in the chapter of biomechanics as well. Inferior, away from the head, relatively lower in position. Inferior is away from the head, relatively lower in position. Injury, the act that damages or hurts. Innervation is going to be a nerve stimulation of a muscle. Now, innervation is going to be a nerve stimulation of the muscle. It's going to be innervation, nerve stimulation of a muscle. Inversion, the movement of the foot towards the midline of the body at the ankle joint. Also see supination. Inversion is going to be the movement of the foot towards the midline of the body at the ankle joint. So innervation is when your foot go together. the foot towards the middle of the body at the ankle joint. Also supination. Ipsilateral is going to be situated on the same side. Remember contralateral? Now ipsilateral is like left hand, left foot. That's ipsilateral. So it's situated on the same side. Or right hand, right foot. Now, ischemia, localized anemia or lack of oxygen. Ischemia, localized anemia or lack of oxygen. Ischemia is when you have localized anemia or lack of oxygen. Now, isokinetic contraction is going to be accommodating or variable resistance. Isokinetic contraction, accommodating or variable resistance, movement of a body part through a range of motion at a constant speed. Now, the isometric contraction. Isometric contraction is a muscular contraction that does not result in a change in the length of the muscle. Isometric contraction, that's muscular contraction that doesn't result in a change in the length of a muscle. So when you're contracting, the length of the muscle is the same. An isotonic contraction is a muscle contraction that overcomes resistance, resulting in a change in the length of the motion. So in isotonic contraction, the opposite, the difference is that it overcomes resistance. So the result in a change in the length of the muscle. So when you're contracting isotonically, the the length of the muscle increases or decreases. An isokinetic contraction accommodating a variable resistance movement of a body part through a range of motion at a constant speed. That's why it's isokinetic. Now, joint is the articulation of two or more bonds. Joint is the articulation of two or more bonds connects bone to bone. A joint cavity, the space between bones that is encapsulated by a synovial membrane and articular cartilage. Joint cavity, the space between the bones that is encapsulated by a synovial membrane and articular cartilage. Ketosis is a condition brought about by the restriction of body of carbohydrate intake. Ketosis is part of nutrition, a condition brought about by the restriction of carbohydrate intake, resulting in excessive acetones or other ketone bodies being secreted by the body. Stored fat becomes more available. So stored fat becomes more available for energy because of the lack of carbohydrates. Ketosis is a part of the keto diet. Lack of carbohydrates, then that means that the the body is absorbing the excessive acetones or other ketones secreted by the body, and that means that the stored fat is more available for energy. Stored fat is like because the body tends to use carbohydrates, the glucose produced from carbohydrates for energy. But in this case, when you exercise and you don't have the carbohydrate intake, that means that the fat is becomes more available because the fat is after the the carbohydrates. And after the fat is the protein or the fatty acids from the protein that actually are used to create your cells in the body. And after fat, that's what it burns. That actually burns your cells. That's why you lose kind of like that's when you're losing like your own weight. But we're gonna go over that in the nutrition chapter. Now, kyphosis is gonna be an excessive posterior curve or of the thoracic upper spine. For kyphosis, I actually have in here, I believe it's like uh, 49. If I'm not, here, dude, how the fuck did I got it right? My God, the cervical spine, the thoracic spine, the lumbar spine. Cervical spine is in the top, the thoracic is in the middle, and the lumbar is in the bottom. Lumbar has 5, thoracic has 12, and cervical has 7. Sacrum and coccyx. So, anyways, yeah, that's part of kyphosis, an excessive posterior curve of the thoracic spine, the one in the middle. The thoracic spine is the one in the middle. So, an excessive posterior curve of the thoracic spine. I believe here it is. Look, kyphosis. Yeah, there you go. So you see it. Now, a lactate is going to be the end product. We're almost done, by the way. The end product of an anaerobic metabolism of glucose. The dissociated form of the lactic acid is going to be the lactate. Dude, there's 5 people watching me. How are you guys? Let's. I'm not a teacher, by the way. I'm just a student like you all. I'm just trying to get ready for the accredited exam. And I think this is the best way to do it, for me at least. Lactate is going to be the end product of the anaerobic metabolism of glucose. That's going to be lactate, the end product of the anaerobic metabolism of glucose, that dissociative form of lactic acid. Lactate threshold is going to be a point during a graded exercise test at which a blood lactate concentration suddenly increases, a good indicator of the highest sustainable workload the individual can perform. Now, the lateral flexion is going to be flexing the trunk or neck to either side of the frontal plane. Lateral flexion is going to be flexing the trunk or neck to either side of the frontal plane. Now, the leg is going to be a portion of the lower limb between the knee and the foot. Yeah, fair enough. A lever is going to be a rigid bar, like a bone, pivoted on a fixed point, used to transmit force, as in raising a weight at one end by pushing down on the other. Now, the ligament is going to be a connective tissue that connects bone to bone. The ligament is going to be the connective tissue that connects bone to bone. Ligaments connect bone to bone, don't forget that. Limiting factor, a characteristic that determines the upper limit of performance on a particular task, exercise, etc., like muscle fiber type, cardiac output, and oxygen uptake. Limiting factor is a characteristic that determines upper limit of performance on a particular task, exercise, etc., like the muscle fiber type, cardiac output, and oxygen uptake. Lordosis is going to be an excessive forward curve of the lumbar or lower spine. Lordosis, I have it right here. The lumbar spine is going to be the lower one. So, yeah, like you see, it's like made of 5 bones. Lordosis is going to be an excessive forward curve of the lumbar lower spine. Lumbar is going to be related or pertaining to the low back. There are 5 lumbar vertebrae located above the sacrum. Maximal is the highest level possible, the greatest effort attainable. Maximal aerobic power, the most oxygen that can be taken up and used by the body during maximal work, relates directly to the work rate that the heart can supply the muscles with oxygenated blood. Now, the maximal heart rate, the highest heart rate attainable, is going to be the maximal heart rate is estimated by subtracting an individual's age from 220. Maximal heart rate is the highest heart rate attainable is estimated by subtracting an individual's age from 220. Now, the movement arm is the shortest or perpendicular distance from the point of force application to the joint or axis. Moment arm is going to be the shortest or perpendicular distance from the point of force application to the joint or axis. The moment arm is going to be the shortest or perpendicular distance, moment arm, the shortest or perpendicular distance from the point of force application to the joint or axis. Motor unit is going to be the functional unit of muscular contraction. Motor unit is the functional unit of muscular contraction consisting of a motor nerve and the muscle fibers it innervates. The motor unit is a functional unit of a muscular contraction consisting of a motor nerve and the muscle fibers it innervates. The muscle group, a group of specific muscles that are responsible for a particular movement or action at the same joint. Now, myositis is inflammation of a muscle. Remember that. Myositis is inflammation of a muscle. Plantar flexion is going to be extending the foot away or pointing one's toes opposite to dorsiflexion. So plantar flexion is going to be extending the foot away or pointing one toes or pointing one's toes. So when you go like this in your foot, it's opposite to dorsiflexion, which it goes towards. Plyometric, the eccentric or lengthening contraction of a muscle immediately preceding a concentric contraction. So plyometric is going to be the eccentric or lengthening contraction of a muscle immediately preceding a concentric contraction. So plyometric exercises just go really quick, eccentric and concentric, eccentric and concentric. Eccentric or lengthening contraction of a muscle immediately preceding a concentric contraction. Posterior, related to or pertaining to the rear. Posterior is back here. Back here is posterior. Related or pertaining to the rear. Posterior tilt is going to be backward tilt of the pelvis. Posterior tilt is going to be the backward tilt of the pelvis. Now, posture, the position or carriage of the entire body. Posture is going to be the position or carriage of the entire body. Progression, a gradual increase from the current level, a term to indicate a use of greater resistance to overload a muscle to effect adaptation. So progression is going to be a gradual increase from the current level, a term to indicate the use of greater resistance to overload a muscle to effect adaptation. Pronation, in the other hand, pronation is going to be foot eversion combined with abduction of the forearm, of the forefoot, forearm. So pronation is going to be rotation of the wrist or hand towards the radius. Pronation is going to be foot eversion, is going to be from the foot. Foot eversion combined with abduction of the forefoot. So abduction is like moving away from the forefoot. So pronation, foot eversion, when the abduction of the forefoot or the for the foot and the forearm. For the foot, it's going to be eversion combined with abduction of the forefoot. And for the forearm, rotation of the wrist and hands towards the radius. Prone, you're going to be lying with the front or face downwards. Prone is like that. Lying with the front or face downward. Protraction is going to be the forward movement of a body part, the scapula, shoulder, girdle. Rotation, forward movement of a body part like the scapula or shoulder girdle. Proximal is going to be closer to any point of reference. Retraction is going to be backward movement of a body part. Retraction is a backward movement of a part. Rotation is movement of a bone around its long longitudinal axis. Superficial, extended, superficial is going to be external, located close to or in the body surface. Superior refers to the head or upper, higher. Supination, for the foot, is going to be supination inversion combining with adduction of the forearm. Now you're going together. And for the forearm, it's going to be, no, sorry, foot is going to be inversion, combine it with, so for pronation is eversion, for supination is inversion, combined with the adduction of the forefoot for the foot, and for the forearm is going to be rotation of the wrist and hands laterally. Rotation of the wrist and hands laterally for supination. Supine refers to the body lying in the face outward, opposite to prone. Supine refers to the body lying in the face with the face outward, opposite to prone, opposite of pronation, which is face downwards. Supination is face outwards. Synergist, a muscle. So synergist muscle is going to be a muscle cooperating with another to produce movement that could not be performed by either muscle individually. Yeah. Synergist muscle is a muscle cooperating with another to produce movement that could not be performed by either muscle individually. Thoracic refers to the chest, the thoracic spine. So refers to the chest. Thoracic refers to the chest. Thorax, a portion of the trunk above the diaphragm and below the neck. That's going to be seen in the respiratory system, the thorax. The portion of the trunk above the diaphragm and below the neck. Tissue, a group of similar cells and fibers that form a distant structure. A tissue is going to be a group of similar cells and fibers that form a distant structure. Tonic, the state of being in a consistent state, muscular or neural activity, like tone. The state of being in a consistent state of muscular or neural activity, like tone. Torque is going to be the effect of producing a force through rotation, the product of force times the length of the force arms. Now, this is going to be the last one, dude. Umbilicus, the navel, the side that marks where the umbilical cord was present. This is going to be umbilicus. It's going to be your belly button. The navel, the side that marks where the umbilical cord was present. Now, vasoconstriction is going to be the vasoconstriction is going to be the narrowing of blood vessels. It's going to be vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction is going to be the narrowing of blood vessels. The vasoconstriction, the narrowing of blood vessels. Vasodilation is the widening of blood vessels. So they are opposite terms. Vasoconstriction, the narrowing of blood vessels. Vasodilation, the widening of blood vessels. Now, vein is going to be the vessel that carries blood away from tissues and towards the heart. The vein is going to be the vessels that carry blood away from tissues and towards the heart. Now, velocity, the rate of motion of a body traveling in a particular direction to the velocity, the range of motion of a body traveling in a particular direction. Ventilation is the process of oxygenating the blood through the lungs. Ventilation, the process of oxygenating the blood through the lungs. Ventricle is going to be a small cavity or pouch, chambers of the heart that push the blood out to the tissues. It's going to be ventricle, a small cavity or pouch. Chambers of the heart that push the blood out to the tissues. Now, vertigo is going to be a feeling of dizziness as to the environment was revolving. So, ventricle is a small cavity or pouch. Chambers of the heart, it's going to be in the heart, small cavity or pouch. Chambers of the heart that push the blood that push the blood out to the tissues. Now, the vertigo, the vertigo is a feeling of dizziness as to the environment was revolving. Vertigo is a feeling of dizziness as to the environment was revolving. Now, viscosity is the state of being sticky or thick. Viscosity, now the viscosity is going to be the state of being sticky or thick. Viscosity, viscosity, the state of being sticky or thick. Vital capacity, the total volume of air that can be exhaled following a maximal inhalation. It's going to be vital capacity, the total volume of air that can be exhaled following a maximal inhalation. Voluntary muscle is going to be the skeletal muscle. It's going to be the only voluntary muscle, the skeletal muscle. Muscle under one's control. The warm-up is going to be the light to moderate. The warm-up is going to be the light to moderate physical activity performed prior to exercise. Work is going to be the movement of force through a distance. Work is the movement of force through a distance. And finally, the work rate. Power or work generated per unit of time. The work rate is going to be the power or work generated per unit of time. So all of these terms, dude, all these terms are extremely important for the exam. It's a lot of terms, dude. It's way too many. How are you guys doing? Dude, it's still almost an hour, dude. Work rate is power or work generated per unit of time. So let's see how many terms we have. So we have abduction, adduction, agonist, androgen, antagonist, anterior tilt, assistant mover, asymmetry of the body, atrophy, axilla, biomechanics, bursa, bursitis, calisthenics, chiropractor, synchrondac, concentric contraction, contralateral, cranial, we have 20 already. Depression, distal, dorsal, dorsiflexion, dorsum, downward rotation, eccentric muscle action, elevation, exercise expiration, we have 30. Extension, external rotation, eversion, flexion, horizontal abduction, hyperextension, hypertrophy, hyperventilation, idiopathic anilia, we have 40. Inferior injury, innervation, inversion, ipsilateral, ischemia, isoconic contraction, isometric contraction, isotonic contraction in joint, we have 50. Joint cavity, kyptosis, kyphosis, lactate threshold, lateral flexion, leg, lever, ligament limiting factor, we have 60. Lordosis, lumbar, maximal aerobic power, maximal heart rate, movement arms, motor unit, muscle group, myositis, plantar flexion, 70. Plyometric, posterior tilt, posture, progression, pronation, protraction, proximal and retraction. We have 80. Rotation, superficial, superior, supination, supine, synergies, thoracic, thorax, tissue, tone, we have 90. Torque, umbilicus, vasoconstriction, vasodilation, vein, velocity, ventilation, ventricle, vertical, viscosity, 100. Vital capacity, voluntary muscle warm-up, work rate, and work rate. We have 105 terms. I cannot believe I just went over 105 terms. I just didn't even count them, dude. That is crazy. I just like is when it gets close or beyond the middle of the body. Motor unit, muscle group, myositis, plantar flexion, 70. Plyometric, posterior tilt, posture, progression, pronation, protraction, sorry, proximal and retraction. We have 80.
Yeah, 105.
Rotation,
105.
superficial, superior, supination, supine, synergies, thorax, tissue, toning, we have 90, torque, umbilicus, vasoconstriction, vasodilation, vein, velocity, ventilation, ventricle, vertical, viscosity, 100, vital capacity, voluntary muscle warm-up, work rate, and work rate. We have 105 terms. I cannot believe I just went over 105 terms. Yeah, I just went over 105 terms. It's really crazy. Yeah, I'll take a break, about 10 minutes, and I'll be right back, and we're gonna start with the chapter 2. We're gonna start with chapter 2, and here we have the notes. CPT Model 1, it's gonna be psychology of behavioral change. I have my notes in here too. And the terms that we're gonna look over at for this chapter. And yeah, bro. To get started, and also definitely we have to look over like in the workbook as well. Yeah, we start with chapter 2. Today we're gonna go over chapters 2, 3, and 4. But remember, 50 minutes, and after 50 minutes we take a 10-minute break. So right now I'm taking a break. So yeah, I'll be back to this. And I'll charge my laptop meanwhile, dude. It's been so long, dude. Can't believe it. Alright, cool. I'm back. Alright, so I'm just letting you guys know this should not take more than 2 hours. Like covering these three chapters should be simple enough. It should not take that long. Let me see, like, how you guys doing? The connection, 50%. I don't know why my battery gets so long like that, bro. Uh, am I being like watched live by these people or not like the people that saw the video and then left? I have no idea. I don't even care. This is for me mainly. But anybody that just wants to learn and wants to pass the accredited exam is more than welcome to watch. I don't mind. Let's see this. Wants to pass the accredited exam is more than welcome to watch. I don't mind. Let's see this. Do off topic like this is just
For weeks now, and I
so
think it's time
stupid,
to
bro.
tell Mr. Krabs.
The animation is getting better though.
Right, the secret operation.
Dude, the animation is getting
Well,
better though.
sir, we've been
Look
working
at that.
on this top secret
Oh my
project,
god.
and we think it's time to let you in on the details.
A few moments later.
Oh, Patrick, what are you doing?
What
I'm
the
not
fuck
doing
is going
anything.
Yeah, to show us how he does the worm.
I wasn't.
Oh, come on, Patrick. We've all done it.
The voice is getting better too.
No,
Insane.
we haven't.
Yes, we have.
No, we haven't.
A few
No. This is gonna screw up my momentum now, bro. I can't be arsed. I just didn't even count them, dude. That is crazy. Chambers of the Heart that push the chapters. Alright, let's continue. As I was saying, this shouldn't take more than 2 hours. As a matter of fact, I have to finish before 3:30 because I have an appointment. But anyways, if we don't finish this today, we're gonna finish tomorrow. It's so good. Let me. Sure. I got them. Fuck's sake. Hold on. Allergies. I was gonna say allergies. They suck. They suck so much. Anyways, and happy Pride Month for everybody. You know, it's Pride Month. It's Pride Month, believe it or not. It's Pride Month. Uh, any LGBTQ join the chat, you're welcome. It's Pride Month, so make sure that nobody is homophobic against you because that is something that we don't want to see, you know? Let's see. I'm not gonna comment over that too much because we are talking about chapter 2 right here, and I need to focus on that. Uh, so the so for chapter 2, it's gonna be chapter 1 is health, fitness, and personal training. 3 sessions. Chapter 2 is psychology of behavioral change. It's going to be in total 8 sessions. And the terms that you're gonna watch in this chapter is gonna be behavior, target behavior. You have three overreaching goal, general behaviors, specific behaviors. You have the transtheoretical model, which is made of 4 key constructs, which is the stages of change, the process of change, self-efficacy, and decision balance. You have 5 stages of change, which are contemplation stage, preparation, action, and maintenance. You have 2 processes of change. You have experimental and behavioral. For the for the experiential process of change, you have conscious raising, dramatic relief, self-revaluation, environmental revaluation, and social liberation. For the 5 behavioral processes of change, you have self-liberation, you have helping relationships, you have counter conditioning, reinforcement management, and stimulus control. Now, for the motivation, you have intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. For the self-efficacy and the basic psychological needs, you have the self-determination theory, which is says DT. You have three needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. You have more motivational interviewing, where the motivational interviewing MI, you have the ORS model, which is going to be open, open-ended questions, affirmations, reflective listening, and summarizing. Four principles of the motivational interviewing. You have the goal setting, SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. Value goal, which is a goal that doesn't really have a specificity on it. Subjective versus objective goals, monitoring, feedback, outcome versus process goals, long-term versus short-term goals. We're gonna go over all that today. I say CPT models for chapter one. So CPT model one, health, fitness, and personal training. Focus on how to apply information as a certified personal trainer. Study tips. Focus on how we practically apply this information as a personal trainer. How to apply info when working. You have to imagine concepts in real workouts with clients. Don't memorize. Do not memorize. Think functionally. The psychology of behavioral change. So CPT models one. How to apply information as a personal trainer. You have the live course. CPT is a certified personal trainer. And 18 quizzes and guided study futures. You're also going to go over the quizzes. Guided study, you have reading assignment plus lecture video and the quiz after reading. Weeks 1 to 10, online textbook. You have the foundations. Online textbook, you have the foundations and applications for certified personal trainers, the online textbook. Quiz prepare you for the final exam, similar to final exam questions. So the quiz is definitely prepare you for the final exam. The final exam is going to be untimed and open book. You have multiple choice questions, no true false questions. You have final exam is untimed and open book. Exam for the online exam, you have true false multiple choice questions. Study tips. Focus on how we practically apply this information as a personal trainer. So study tips, focus on how we practically apply this information as a personal trainer. You have the example type 2 muscle fibers are fast with short and speed. Visualize them working during explosive leads or sprints. So do not memorize, you have to think functionally. Now let's get started with chapter 2, psychology of behavioral change. Learning objectives. Learning objectives is going to be define behavior and behavior change. For learning objectives, you have to define behavior and behavior change. You have to explain the purpose of the stages of change, the purpose of the stages of change and how they are applicable to fitness and wellness. Define motivation. So the learning objectives, let's do this again. We call it behavioral change. The learning objectives, sorry, what? The learning objectives for psychology of behavior change. Define behavior and behavior change. Explain the purpose of the stages of change and how they are applicable to fitness and wellness. Now define motivation, the self-determination theory, and motivational interviewing. Describe the components of a SMART goal, and finally explain the scope of practice for psychology and behavioral change for a personal trainer. It's going to be the 5 learning objectives. Define behavior and behavioral change. Explain the purpose of the stages of change and how they're applicable to fitness and wellness. Define motivation, self-determination theory, and motivational interviewing. Describe the components of the SMART goal, and explain the scope of practice for psychology and behavior change for a personal trainer. So what holds many clients back? Every client needs at least one goal. So for behavior, it's going to be the action that can be observed, measured, and modified. Selecting a behavior. So you need to select a target behavior. You have 3. Identify the goal, the target behavior, identify the contributing general behaviors, and identify the specific behaviors that can be modified. Do not overwhelm clients with the behavior change. So you cannot overwhelm the client with the behavior change. So overreaching goal is going to be to improve body composition. Overreaching goal, overarching goal is going to be to improve body composition. General behaviors like nutrition, physical activity, sleep, and cognitive behaviors. Specific behaviors so the difference between general and specific behaviors, right? General behaviors like nutrition, physical activity, sleep, and cognitive behaviors, and specific behaviors like macronutrient intake, hydration, modality, duration, per 24 hours preparation for sleep, behaviors, managing stress, and cognitive appraisal. General is generalized, specific is specific. Yeah. And here you already went over uh, the 3 steps, the target for the target behavior. The 3 steps, which is going to be identify the goal, the overarching goal, identify the contributing general behaviors, and identify the specific behaviors that can be modified. Do not overwhelm clients with their behavior with not overwhelm clients with their behavioral change. Now, the trans-theoretical model. We're going to talk about a little bit about the trans-theoretical model. It's going to be a four key. You have four key constructs for the trans-theoretical model. It's going to be a behavior change model, focuses on the stages of change, the process of changing behavior, self-efficacy, and the decision balance. So, trans-theoretical model is a behavior change model, focus on the stages of change, the process of changing behavior, the self-efficacy, and the decision balance. The theoretical model has four key constructs, which is going to be the stages of change, the process of change, the self-efficacy, and the decision balance. So for the stages of change, the description of the stages of change is going to be readiness to engage in a desired behavior. The process of change is going to be the necessary steps and factors that influence a change in behavior. The self-efficacy is going to be the internal belief in one's capability to make the desired change. And the decision balance is going to be the determination of whether a change is worth pursuing. It's going to be the four key constructs. Now, the stages of change are going to be 5 stages. It's going to be 5 stages here. For a contemplation stage, contemplation, then preparation, action, and maintenance. So for the pre-contemplation stage, there is no intention of addressing a behavior. For the contemplation, they are aware of the need to change, but have barriers to overcome to address it. So they know they have to change, but there are barriers that you need to overcome to address them. The contemplation. Now, for the preparation, they have the desire to change and are seeking a way. For the preparation, they want to change, they have the desire to change and are seeking a way. Action, they are taking the necessary steps to address their behavior and change it. For the action stage, they are taking the necessary steps to address their behavior and change it. And maintenance is they are continuing to do what is needed to maintain the desired behavior. For maintenance is maintenance, literally. They are continuing to do what is necessary to maintain their desired behavior. It's going to be the 5 stages of change. Now, the process of change, you have 2 processes of changes. 2 types of process of changes. You have experiential and behavioral. You have two types of process of changes. You have the experiential based on experience and the behavioral based on behavior. So the experiential is through trust, perceptions, and feelings towards a target behavior. Experiential. Thoughts, perceptions, and feelings towards a target behavior. And behavioral is an active strategies that we're engaged in to influence behavior. Now you have in here in behavior. So for experiential, you have 5 experientials. You have consciousness raising, dramatic relief, self-revaluation, environmental revaluation, and social liberation for experiential. For behavioral, you have self-liberation, you have helping relationships, you have counter conditioning, you have reinforcement management and stimulus control. So remember, experiential, you have consciousness raising, dramatic relief, self-evaluation, environmental evaluation, and social liberation. For behavior, you have self-liberation, helping relationships, counter-conditioning, reinforcement management, and stimulus control. So for the process of change, you have you have 2 motivations: extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation for the process of change. Extrinsic is because somebody wants you to do it. The motivation factors: extrinsic, someone wants you to do it. External gratification. Intrinsic is because you want to do it. It's positive or negative. Positive is going to be motivations towards a goal. and negative is going to be motivation away from something. So the most effective for lasting change is definitely a positive intrinsic motivation. The most effective for lasting change is definitely going to be a positive intrinsic motivation. So the three primary types of intrinsic motivation. So there are three primary types of intrinsic motivation, which is going to be the self-efficacy and basic psychological needs in the self-determination theory. There are three primary types of intrinsic motivation. So there are three primary types of intrinsic motivation in the self-efficacy and basic psychological needs. It's going to be in the self-determination theory, a general theory of human motivation that suggests a person is motivated to change by three basic psychological needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So the self-determination theory is a general theory of human motivation that suggests a person is motivated to change by three basic psychological needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Three different psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So here we're going to go over each of them. It's going to be based on the self-esteem. Autonomy is going to be basic need to feel in control of one's own behavior and goals. Basic need to feel in control of one's own behavior and goals. It's going to be boosted by teaching clients proper form, explaining program design, educate them on optimal nutrition for their body and their unique goals, encourage them to ask why and understand what they are doing, seek out their input on their workouts and nutrition, setting and communication realistic expectations, and acknowledging the client's feelings. So it's going to basically need to feel in control of one's own behavior and goals. Competence is going to be the basic need to feel effective and capable in one's own actions. Competence is boosted by giving the client feedback, offering a consistent structure and routine, creating performance goals that are challenging yet achievable, breaking down exercises into pieces that are easier to learn, and teaching clients proper exercise technique and educating clients on proper mental techniques. And relatedness is basic need to feel a sense of belonging and connection to others. Improve by allowing the client to provide feedback on their program, letting the client offer solutions to obstacles or concerns, encouraging the client to share their personal or professional expertise, encouraging clients to join social groups that support their target behaviors, and communicating clearly with the clients. Communicating clearly with the clients. So here is the three of them. Autonomy is the basic need to feel in control of one's own behavior and goals. Competence is the basic need to feel effective and capable of in one's actions, and related is the basic need to feel a sense of belonging and connection to others. So a lot of people confuse autonomy with competence. Autonomy is the basic need to feel in control of one's own behaviors and goals. You have autonomy over what you do. Basic need to feel in control of one's own behaviors and goals. And competence is the basic need to feel effective and capable of one's actions. Competence is related to competition. Need to feel effective and capable of one's own actions, which means that you need that that you feel that what you are doing is actually helping to improve your to get closer to your goals, and to be able to be competitive. And relatedness is the basic need to feel a sense of belonging and connection to others. But relatedness is very important because you need to feel that what you're doing is connecting with other human beings. Uh, you're related to others, or else you're gonna feel like what you're doing makes is isolating yourself, and you don't want that. You know? That's gonna be part of the self-determination theory. Although this autonomy, competence, and relatedness is from the self-determination theory. Remember that. Now, boost clients' intrinsic motivation by implementing the three different psychological needs. You need to boost the client's intrinsic motivation by implementing the three different psychological needs. Now, motivational interviewing, MI is going to help the client uncover their motivations for themselves. Motivational interviewing, the MI, helps the client uncover their motivations for themselves. Now, refer to how we engage. It refers to how we engage with our clients. Refers to how we engage with our clients. You have a Norse model for motivational interviewing, which is going to be open-ended questions, affirmations, reflective listening, and summarizing. A skill-based client is going to be a skill-based client-centered model of interactive techniques. It's a skill-based client-centered model of interactive techniques. The four principles of motivational interviewing: resist the urge to fix, understand the client's motivations, Listen to the client and empower the client. The 4 principles of motivational interviewing is going to be to resist the urge to fix, understand the client's motivations, listen to the client, and empower the client. Now, goal setting is going to be the process of identifying the client's ideal state, determining their current state, and defining the actions that must be taken to close the gap. Clear goals with our clients, going to be goal setting. Going to be the process of identifying the client's ideal state, determining their current state, and defining the actions that must be taken to close the gap. It's going to be clear with it's going to be clear goals. Goal settings is going to be clear goals with our clients. Short-term goals is going to be made of short-term goals, process goals, long-term goals, and outcome goals. It's going to be made of short-term goals, process goals, long-term goals, and outcome goals. Smart goals. Smart goals is going to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Meet all 5 of the key points of the SMART acronym. Specific is going to be a well-defined, clear objective, like, for example, bench pressing 150 points or losing 15 lbs of fat in 6 months. Measurable is going to be clear criteria, to track the outcome. Measurable is going to be a clear criteria to track an outcome. Example is going to be running 2 miles in 18 minutes or less. Clear criteria to track an outcome. It's going to be measurable. Clear criteria to track an outcome. Example is going to be running 2 miles in 18 minutes or less. Now, achievable. Achievable is within the capabilities, abilities, and constraints of the client. Within the capabilities, abilities, and constraints of the client. Is it possible to lose 10 pounds in 2 months? Example, is it possible to lose 10 pounds in 2 months? The answer is either yes or no. Now, relevant is going to be aligned with the client's short and long-term goals. Relevant is going to align with the client's short and long-term goals. Example, completing 4 days of exercise each week is conductive to a weight loss goal. So relevant aligned with the client's short and long-term goals. For example, completing 4 days of exercise each week is conductive to a weight loss goal. Yeah, definitely. Video. And finally, time-bound. Time-bound, finally. Time-bound goals has a clear defined time frame of completion. Time-bound, it has a clear defined time frame for completion. Example is going to be gain 5 pounds by April 1st of this year, or gain 5 pounds by March 1st of 2024. So time-bound goals has a clear defined time frame for completion, like gain 5 pounds by March 1st of 2024 or by April 1st of this year. A vacuum goal is a goal that doesn't really have any specificity. It's not smart. A value goal is not smart. It's stupid. Remember, a value goal. I want to get stronger and lose some weight. So it's not specific. I want to get stronger and lose some weight. Need to be much more defined and specific in order to be effective. Ask follow-up questions as personal trainers. You have to ask follow-up questions as personal trainers. So, smart goals. I want to lose 50. A smart goal will be, I want to lose 15 pounds of body fat in the next 6 months. Smart goal will be like, I want to lose 15 pounds of body fat in the next 6 months. Monitoring is going to be the process of observing and taking notice of routine behaviors that impact goal progress and achievement. So you have in here subjective and objective goals. You have subjective versus objective goals. Subjective goal, a goal based on a subjective outcome that will be dependent on the interpretation of the individual client. An objective goal is going to be a goal based on objective quantifiable data that can be measured and evaluated. Follow up. What does stronger mean to you? What does stronger mean to you? A smart goal is like, I want to lose 15 pounds of body fat in the next 6 months. A smart goal is, I want to lose 15 pounds of body fat in the next 6 months. Monitoring is going to be the process of observing. Monitoring is going to be the process of observing and taking notice of routine behaviors that impact goal progress and achievement. You track that client progress. Monitoring is going to be the process of observing and taking notice of routine behaviors that impact the goal progress and achievement. You track the client progress. You track the client progress. So that was the model one, chapter two. You have some course topics over here. You have physiology, anatomy, biomechanics, nutrition, training principles, exercise selection, programming, business marketing, business and marketing, psychology, and special populations considerations. Physical activity guidelines for Americans. General exercise recommendations by age is going to be 6 to 17 years of age. You have for a 6 to 17-year-old, you have to have at least 60 minutes or an hour of daily moderate to vigorous physical activity every day. For 18 to 64 years of age, you have to have at least 150 to 300 minutes weekly. For 18 to 64, you have to have at least 150 to 300 minutes weekly of weekly exercise. And for pregnancy, you have 150 plus minutes weekly. If you're pregnant, you have to have at least 150 plus minutes weekly. Seniors and people with chronic health conditions vary by conditions and limitations. Building rapport vary by condition and limitations. Uh, Building rapport and effective communication. Building rapport and effective communication. Building rapport and effective communication. Building rapport Building rapport and effective communication. The personal trainer's job is personal. Open communication and build trust between trainer and client. Ask the right questions. Ask the right questions. Keep conversations focused on the client and their needs. Ask lots of follow-up questions. Be a friend in the most professional sense. And consider the training environment. Be consistent. You have some goal-setting tips. Every client you work with should have 1+ training goals. A stated goal is necessary for two reasons. Client will have to think about what they want to achieve and vocalize it. Client's stated goal is important so that the trainer can design an exercise program that will move them toward that goal in a systematic way. And you have some tips over here, like have clients write down goals on paper, use SMART methodology, hold clients accountable, use training partners, check progress regularly. Client satisfaction is going to be the key for client retention and growing your business. Client satisfaction, the key for client retention and growing your business. So client satisfaction is key. Client satisfaction is key for client retention and grow your business. Okay, now in here we're gonna look before moving on to the workbook, the foundations and applications for a certified personal trainer workbook. About this workbook. This workbook serves as a resource companion to your personal training textbook. The workbook has been designed with one main purpose, to help you better understand the content of the main book, the main text. Use the content by focusing on important points and concepts. Having you write the answers directly in the guide. This way of studying also provides an easy way to follow the flow of the course text. If you follow along with the workbook, you will have covered all the main topics in the course text. Students employ different strategies to learn the materials to prepare for the CPT certification exam. The most commonly used strategy employs reading and underlying text material. Another includes outlining or writing key concepts. This workbook encourages each of these methods. Experience has shown that individuals who faithfully use the workbook achieve greater understanding of the course material than those who do not use the workbook. And that is true because now I have great understanding of the material. the course. So in here, for chapter 2, psychology of behavioral change. Chapter 2 is psychology of behavioral change. You have some terms in here. Stages of change. You have pre-contemplation, not ready for change, no intention of addressing a behavior. In denial or ignorant that change is needed, possible, or worthy effort within the next 6 months. Lacks the belief that a key indicator is lacks the belief that they could change, quit a behavior or start a behavior, even if they wanted to. Persist no control over their behavior, so like resigned to their current state and defeated by failed prior attempts to change. That's why they don't even want to change because they have failed before. Now, contemplation is thinking about change. Client is aware of the need to change, but have barriers to overcome to address it. Contemplate making a change within the next 6 months, but reluctant to commit. Aware of a key indicator of it is going to be aware of potential benefits of making a change, but persist the cost, time, effort, sacrifices outweighs the benefits. Procrastinating making effort towards the behavior change. So they procrastinate making efforts towards their behavior change. They procrastinate making efforts towards their behavior change. Preparation, you are preparing to make a change. That's a description. You're preparing to make a change. Client has the desire to change and is seeking a way. Committed in making a change in the target behavior within the 30 days and engages in preparation activities. So examples or key indicators are going to be begins to take small steps towards the target behavior change. Example, buys exercise apparel or equipment, signs up for a gym membership, collects information, initiates the hire of a personal trainer. Action stage is going to be taking action to change, engage in change behavior for less than 6 months. New behavior is not fully stabilized, taking the necessary steps to address their behavior and change it. So the action stage, the key indicators is actively doing things to change or modify behavior, structures their environment in ways that support their healthy behavior, structures their environment in ways that support their healthy behavior. Like examples are going to be avoids temptations that trigger their undesirable behavior, avoids temptations that trigger the undesirable behavior, and maintenance is going to be maintaining positive behavior, sustaining their new healthy behavior for more than 6 months, continuing to do what is needed to maintain their desired behavior. It's going to be the description. And the key indicators are going to be new behavior becomes second nature, greater confidence in the ability to maintain the new behavior, and greater sense of control over their behavior. This is going to be the 10 processes of change. The 10 processes of change that personal trainer can use with clients. They have to do with the experiential and behavioral. The first five is going to be part of the experiential process of change. You have this first five is going to be part of the experiential process of change. You have consciousness raising, getting the facts, dramatic relief, invoking emotions, self revelation, creating a new self image, environmental revelation, realizing the effect on others, and social liberation, noticing societal acceptance. It's going to be for the experiential process of change. It's about of the experience. You have consciousness raising, you have getting the facts, dramatic relief, invokes emotions, self revelation, creating a new self image, environmental revaluation, realizing the effect on others, and social liberation, noticing societal acceptance. And now for the behavioral process of change, you have self-liberation, committing with confidence, helping relationships, generating social support, counter-conditioning, making substitutions, reinforcement management, using rewards and feedback, and stimulus control, managing the environment. It's going to be for the behavioral part. So you're behaving on the change, on the process of change. So self-liberation, you commit with confidence, helping relationships, you generate social support. Counter-conditioning, you make substitutions for the bad behavior towards the good behavior. Reinforcement management, using rewards and feedback. And stimulus control, you manage your environment. Stimulus control, you manage your environment. Now define motivation. What is motivation? Is the reason or reasons one has for behaving a certain way. The reason or reasons one has for behaving a certain way. It includes two key components, direction of effort and intensity of effort. You have the direction of the effort and intensity of the effort. So direction is what a person is drawn to or trying to achieve. such as the target behavior, intensity, the amount of energy and effort put forth toward the target. So motivation is the reason or reasons one has for behaving a certain way. It includes two key components: direction of effort and intensity of effort. Direction is what a person is drawn to or trying to achieve, such as the target behavior. Intensity is the amount of energy and effort put forth toward a target. Toward the target. Now, you have in here the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is a drive to participate in a task or activity because of personal enjoyment. It has to do with your personal passions, feelings of accomplishment, and self-esteem. Extrinsic motivation is a drive to participate in a task or activity because of external factors such as recognition, money, or praise. The person is engaged in the activity or task mainly because of the reward he or she will get from engaging. Now, the three basic human needs from the self-determination theory is going to be uh, autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy is going to be the basic need to feel in control of one's own behavior and goals. The basic autonomy is the basic need to feel in control of one's own behavior and goals, like the need for self-governance. Competence is the basic need to feel effective and capable in one's actions. Competence is the basic need to feel effective and capable in one's actions. And relatedness is going to be the basic need to feel a sense of belonging and connection to others. So the basic human needs for physiological change. Autonomy is going to be the basic need to feel in control of one's own behavior and goals, need for self-governance. Competence is the basic need to feel effective and capable in one's actions. Effective is the key word. And relatedness is going to be the basic need to feel a sense of belonging and connection to others. Now, the ORS model. What is the ORS model and what is it used for? The ORS model is going to be part of the motivational interviewing. The ORS model motivational interviewing helps the client uncover their motivations for themselves and refers to how we engage with our clients. So the ORS model in here, the open-ended questions is using how or what or how questions instead of why. Open-ended questions, you're using what or how questions instead of why. What or how questions instead of why. Affirmations, affirming the strength or ability of the client and praising their effort. Reflective listening with the intent to understand the client and to offer an unbiased reflection to help them improve. And summarizing, collective summary of what was talked about. The ORS model for motivational interviewing. So motivational interviewing helps the client uncover their motivation for themselves. Refers to how we engage with our clients. And here, the ORS model, you have open-ended questions using what or how instead of why. What or how questions instead of why to make the client think. Affirmations reaffirming the strength or ability of the client and praising their effort. Affirmation to motivate the client. Reflective listening with the intent to understand the client and to offer an unbiased reflection of to help them improve. And summarizing is a collective summary of what was talked about. Summarizing is a collective summary of what was talked about. And here you have to define and describe an outcome goal and a process goal. So an outcome goal is also known as a long-term goal. It's a goal where the end result is the specific desired outcome. And identifying a meaningful outcome goal provides a sense of purpose. So an outcome goal is also known as a long-term goal. It is a goal where the end result is a specific desired outcome. And identifying the meaningful outcome goal provides a sense of purpose. Identifying a meaningful outcome goal provides a sense of purpose. And a process goal is a smaller goal that must be achieved in an attempt to reach a larger result. A process goal is a smaller goal that must be achieved in an attempt to reach a larger result. A goal where the focus is on the process or the action that will lead to the desired end result. So that's the main difference. Outcome is long-term, process is short-term. So outcome goal is also known as a long-term goal. It is a goal where the end result is the specific desired outcome, and identifying a meaningful outcome goal provides a sense of purpose. And the process goal is a smaller goal that must be achieved in an attempt to reach a larger result. A goal where the focus is on the process or action that will lead to the desired end result. Now in here you have goal setting. In goal setting, what does the acronym SMART stand for? Specific, a well-defined, a well clearly defined objective, measurable, a clear criteria to track an outcome, achievable within the capabilities, abilities, and constraints of the client, relevant, aligned with the client's short and long-term goals, and time-bound, has a clearly defined time frame for completion. Time-bound has a clearly defined time frame for completion. Give an example of a SMART goal related to fitness. Give an example of a SMART goal related to fitness. Give an example of a SMART goal related to fitness. So, for example, I will lose 5 pounds by February 1st of this year to be within the weight range of 175 lbs for the official weighting of my boxing competition. That's an example of a SMART goal. It's specific. It's not vague. It's specific. Give an example of a SMART goal related to fitness. So, uh, I will lose 5 pounds by February 1st of this year to be within the weight range of 175 pounds for the official weighting of my boxing competition. Is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Explain the importance of feedback between a personal trainer and a client. So, the importance of feedback between a personal trainer and a client. The feedback given from the personal trainer to the client is also a factor that contributes to the client's perceived competence. For the client to develop their proficiency in exercise movements and or fitness level, the client must operate within the feedback loop for growth. The personal trainer's role is to provide quality feedback such as constructive criticism and effective specific praise that can directly increase the client's competence ability. Correcting mistakes is essential for growth and development. Through constructive criticism, the client can learn what adjustments must be made to ensure safety and movement effectiveness. For the feedback to increase the client's competence level, criticism needs to be delivered constructively. For the feedback to increase the client's competence level, the criticism needs to be delivered constructively. When a trainer identifies and communicates what was specifically done incorrectly and provides clear instruction on how to make the appropriate corrections, then the client can gain confidence in their ability to do it right next time. For the feedback to increase the client's competence level, criticism needs to be delivered constructively. When a client identifies and communicates what was specifically done incorrectly and provides clear instruction on how to make the appropriate corrections, then the client can gain the confidence necessary in their ability to do it right the next time. And that was the psychology of behavioral change in the workbook. It's going to be for movement systems right here. And finally, you have the quiz. You have the quiz for the psychology of behavior change. So there are 6 questions. So first, after this, we're going to take a break. Uh, so for quiz one, psychology of behavior change. Behavior is going to be an action that can be observed, measured, and modified. That's behavior. That's the definition of behavior. An action that can be observed, measured, and modified. What stage of change is someone in if they're engaging in a new behavior or have been doing so for less than 6 months? If they're engaged in a new behavior and been doing so for less than 6 months, it's going to be action stage. The stage of change is someone they're in denial or ignorant of the fact that the change is maybe necessary. Denial or ignorant is going to be pre-contemplation stage. So the type of motivation that is driven by personal enjoyment and satisfaction is going to be intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is going to be driven by personal enjoyment and satisfaction. Physiological need is the self-determination theory. Which psychological need in the self-determination theory is described as the basic need to feel in control of one's own behavior and goals. Is going to be autonomy. Autonomy. Which of the following is an example of an open-ended question? Uses what or how, not why. Instead of why, you use what or how. It's going to be open-ended questions. You have it right here. Uh, the open-ended questions you use what or how instead of why. You see, this is why. How did you first notice you were gaining weight? That's an open-ended question. How did you first notice you were gaining weight? What type of goal is focusing on the necessary steps to achieve it? Focusing on the necessary steps to achieve it is going to be process goal, because process goal is part of like specific goals. It focuses on short-term goals. So outcome goal is not a long-term goal, so it's a goal where the end result is the specific desired outcome, identifying a meaningful outcome goal provides a sense of purpose, and process goal is a smaller goal that must be achieved in an attempt to reach a larger result. A goal where the focus is on the progress or action that will lead to the desired end result. So that's why it's shorter. So the type of goal focuses on the necessary steps to achieve it is going to be progress goal. A in SMART goal stands for achievable. What type of goal is open to interpretation by the client as opposed to being supported by measurable data? Open to interpretation as opposed to being supported by measurable data is subjective goal. And when communicating with clients, what type of communication must be constructive and effective to improve competence is going to be feedback. Feedback. Constructive and effective to improve competence, feedback. So that's going to be the quick one psychology behavioral change. So behavior is an action that can be observed, measured, and modified. Stage of change is someone that are in getting new behavior and have been doing so for less than 6 months. It's going to be action. After 6 months, it's going to be maintenance. Stage of change that they're in denial or new to the fact that the change is maybe necessary is going to be contemplation. Motivation, type of motivation that is driven by personal enjoyment and satisfaction is going to be intrinsic motivation. A type of motivation that is driven by personal enjoyment and satisfaction is intrinsic motivation, as opposed to extrinsic motivation, which is external reward. Intrinsic is personal enjoyment and satisfaction. Which physiological need in the self-determination theory is described as the basic need to feel in control of one's own behavior and behavior and goals is going to be autonomy. An example of open-ended questions. An open-ended question is what or how instead of why. Uses what or how instead of why. Which of the following is an example of an open-ended question? How did you first notice that you were gaining weight? What type of goal is focusing on the necessary steps to achieve it? Is going to be the focusing on the necessary steps to achieve is going to be a process goal. A in the SMART goal stands for achievable. A type of goal open to interpretation by the client as opposed to being supported by measurable data. A type of goal which is open to interpretation by the client as opposed to being supported by measurable data is going to be subjective goal. And when communicating with clients, what type of communication must be constructive and effective to improve competence is going to be feedback. Feedback, feedback. Feedback. So yeah, that was the first chapter 2, and after that we're gonna go to movement systems, and after that we're gonna go to supporting systems. And yeah, like I was saying, it should not take more than 2 hours. So movement systems and supporting systems, nervous systems, skeletal system, muscular systems, ligaments, internal respiration. The concept of biomechanics is going to be a little bit harder, but this is what I'm trying to decide. So we're going to take a break, of course. I'm trying to decide if we're going to do this today or later because in an hour I have to go. So, and like this vocabulary terms part really took longer than I expected. So, yeah. I'm going to take a break right now and we'll see. And I have to charge this too. That's the problem too. I have to charge this laptop right here. All right, I'm gonna take a break again. Retention is really important for this one. Yeah, good. It has after end stream is alright, like because I know this is really really long, anyways. And in an hour I have to leave, so yeah, it's a problem. Right, okay, I'll be right back. Look, oh shit, that was me. Okay, guys. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna be able to finish today, but because at 3:30 I have an appointment, so it's gonna be online anyway. So yeah, we are going to try to finish everything that we have so far. Hopefully the battery doesn't die on me. It's gonna really suck. But anyways, so let's go where we left on. On the quiz one, for psychology of behavioral change. Let's try to review that one more time. All right, and then we're gonna go over to chapter 3, movement system terms. The terms of the movement system, which includes the nervous, muscular, and skeletal system. So psychology of behavioral change. Behavior is going to be an action that can be observed, measured, and modified. The stage of changing someone engaging in a new behavior and have been doing so for less than 6 months is going to be action. The state of change where someone are in denial or ignorance for the fact that a change may be necessary is going to be pre-contemplation. That motivation is driven by personal enjoyment and satisfaction is going to be intrinsic motivation is driven by personal enjoyment and satisfaction. Intrinsic motivation. Psychological need in the self-determination theory, which psychological need in the self-determination theory is described as the basic need to feel in control of one's own behavior and act and goals. The psychological need in the self-determination theory, SDT, described as the basic need to feel in control of one's own behavior and goals is going to be autonomy. To feel in control of one's own behavior and goals. Autonomy. Which of the following is an example of an open-ended question, which you're going to use how or what instead of why. How did you first notice you were gaining weight? It's an example of an open-ended question. How did you first notice you were gaining weight? What type of goal is focused on the necessary steps to achieve it? It's going to be process goal. The type of goal focused on the necessary steps to achieve it is going to be the process goal. A in the SMART goal stands for achievable. A type of goal open to interpretation by a client as opposed to being supported by measurable data is going to be subjective goal. And communicating with clients, what type of communication must be constructive and effective to improve competence is going to be feedback. Now we're going to go over to movement systems. Chapter 3, movement systems. You have some learning objectives for movement systems. First of all, let me see how is this going at. I have 0 concurrent viewers. I love it. This is going at. I have 0 concurrent viewers. I love it. This is going at. Crazy. All right, let's go over movement systems. So you have some learning objectives for movement systems. You have to describe the structures and functions. Learning objectives, you have to describe the structures and functions of the nervous, muscular, and skeletal systems. And you have to name the different types of connective tissues and their unique functions. So the movement systems, you have three. You have you have 3 types of movement systems. You have muscular, skeletal, and nervous system. Nervous system, skeletal system, and muscular systems are the 3 prominent organ systems responsible for human movement. The body has 11 organ systems. So the nervous system initiates all movement. Brain says go and muscles contract to move bones after they are told to do so by the nervous system. It initiates all movement. Nervous system instructor is going to be controlled both voluntary and involuntary functions. You have the central nervous system, which is composed of the brain and the spinal cord. The neurons are responsible for transmitting signals to and from other neurons to muscles and glands. The neurons are responsible for transmitting signals to and from other neurons and muscles and glands. So neurons are responsible for transmitting signals to and from other neurons and to muscles and glands. So the nervous system is separated into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system is going to be the brain and spinal cord, receives sensory information. And the peripheral nervous system is going to be consists of all other nerve tissues outside the central nervous system. You have the motor neurons which are efferent, And the sensory neurons, which are afferent. In the motor neurons, you have the somatic nervous system, which controls voluntary movement, and the autonomic nervous system, which controls involuntary responses. And in the autonomic nervous system, you have the sympathetic division, which is fight or flight, and you have the parasympathetic division, which is going to be rest and digest. So I forgot to uh, talk about some terms for this chapter, movement and systems terms. For the movement systems terms, you have the nervous system, the muscular system, the skeletal system. In the nervous system, you have the brain, the spinal cord, the nerves. You already know that the nerves are going to be, the neurons are responsible for transmitting signals to and from our neurons to muscles and glands. You have the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system, you have the neurons. You have the neurons, which is going to be responsible for transmitting signals to and from other neurons and to muscles and glands. You have from the motor neurons, which are going to be efferent, which means that they go from the central nervous system from the brain and spinal cord to the rest of the body, and the sensory neurons which are afferent. The sensory neurons go from the body to the brain and the spinal cord. If I'm not mistaken, in here you will see in right here you have CNS. The motor neurons you go from the central nervous system to the muscles and glands, and the sensory neurons you go from the sensory organs to the central nervous system. The somatic nervous system controls voluntary movement. Sorry, dude, please. Somatic nervous system controls voluntary movements, and autonomic nervous system controls involuntary responses. Sympathetic division is fight or flight, and parasympathetic division is rest and digest. Yeah, this is what we're gonna see after reading the chapter. We are still gonna look at the workbook, right? And here you have motor neurons are afferent, sensory neurons are afferent. You have the somatic nervous system controls voluntary movement, autonomic nervous system controls involuntary movement. The sympathetic division is fight or flight, and parasympathetic division is rest and digest. The skeletal system. The skeletal system consists of 206 bones, in which which is divided into two. The skeletal system, and I have it right here. The axial skeleton consists of about 80 bones, which includes the skull, the spine, and the ribs. Appendicular skeleton includes the shoulder girdle, the pelvic girdle, and the limbs of bones, which is about 126 bones. So axial skeleton is going to be the skull, the spine, and the ribs. Appendicular skeleton is going to be the rest of the bone 126, with the bones of the shoulder girdle, the pelvic girdle, and the limbs. So let's continue. Sorry, this one here. The types of bones in the human skeleton. You have 5 types of bones in the human skeleton. You have the long bones, the short bones, irregular bones, essamoid bones, and flat bones. And you have 3 types of bones. You have the fibrous, cartilaginous, and synovial bones, which you're gonna look for as well. You have connective tissues like the tendons, which connect muscle to bone, the ligaments connect bone to bone, and the cartilage found on the ends of the wrist between the vertebrae joint surfaces and the nose and ears. And the muscular system, you have 3 types of muscle tissues: cardiac muscle, from the heart, involuntary smooth muscle. From the digestive system, it's going to be involuntary, and skeletal muscle, which is voluntary. And in here you have the skeletal muscle fiber types. Slow twitch is type 1, and fast twitch is going to be type 2A and type 2X. You have myofibrils, you have actin and filament, sarcomeres, and endomysium. And sliding filament theory is going to involve actin, which is a thin myofilament, and the myosin, which is a thick myofilament. The sliding filament theory. Actin is going to, the muscle fiber arrangement for the sliding filament theory. The actin is the thin myofilament, and the myosin is the thick myofilament. You have the all or none principle, and the size principle, the Henneman principle. So we're going to read this right now. So we already went over the nervous system. You want to read it again, right? Cool. chapter 2 CPT notes, you have the movement systems, the learning objectives. Describe the structures and functions of the nervous, muscular, and skeletal systems, and then name the different types. And you need to name the different types of connective tissues and their unique functions. And their unique functions. So the movement systems, you have the nervous, skeletal, and muscular systems are the three prominent organ systems responsible for human movement. In the nervous system, is going to initiate all movement. The nervous system initiates all movement. You have the brain that says go, the brain says go, and the muscles contract to move bones after they are told to do so by the nervous system. Nervous system structure is going to control both voluntary and involuntary functions. You have the central nervous system composed of the brain and the spinal cord. The central nervous system, which is composed of the brain and the spinal cord. The nervous system is divided between the nervous system is divided between the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. The nervous system structure is going to be the central nervous system structure composed of the brain and the spinal cord. The neurons are going to be responsible for transmitting signals to and from other neurons and to muscles and glands. The neurons are responsible for transmitting signals to and from other neurons and to muscles and glands. So the nervous system is going to be separated into the nervous system is going to be separated into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is going to be the brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system separated between the brain and spinal cord. It receives sensory information. The central nervous system receives sensory information. Don't forget that the central nervous system receives the sensory information to our brains. Peripheral nervous system is consists of all other nervous tissue outside the central nervous system. It's composed of the motor neurons, which are efferent, goes from the central nervous system to the muscles and glands, and the sensory neurons, which are afferent, goes from our goes from our sensory organs to our central nervous system. I'm going to see that in a bit. Now, for the motor neurons, you have the somatic nervous system, which controls voluntary movement, and the autonomic nervous system, which controls involuntary movement. And in the autonomic nervous system, we have the sympathetic division, which is fight or flight, and the parasympathetic division, which is going to be rest and digest. The graph is going to be on the chapter in the book on chapter 3. The graph is in the book on chapter 3. You have it right there on here. So here, the central nervous system, the brain receives and processes information, initiates responses, stores memories, stores memories, generates thoughts and emotions. Spinal cords conduct signals to and from the brain, controls reflex activities. Peripheral nervous system is going to be the motor neurons, receives to muscles and glands. And sensory neurons, motor neurons are efferent. The CNS to muscles and glands. Sensory neurons are afferent, the sensory organs to central nervous system. Somatic nervous system is going to control voluntary movement. Autonomic nervous system controls involuntary responses. The sympathetic division controls fight or flight. The parasympathetic division it controls rest and digest. Now, that was all part of the nervous system. Now, the skeletal system. The skeletal system serves as a structure and support in the body. The skeletal system serves as a structure and support in the body. It contains 206 bones that provide a framework and attachment for muscle tissue. The skeletal system serves as a structure and support in the body. The skeletal system serves as a structure and support in the body. You have 206 bones that provide the framework and attachment for muscle tissue. And they're responsible for producing blood in the bone marrow, provides leverage for movement. Skeletal system serves as a structure. It's going to be composed of 206 bones in total, serves as a structure and support in the body. You have 206 bones in total that provide the framework. They provide the framework and attachment for muscle tissue. They're responsible for producing blood they're responsible for producing blood in the bone marrow and provides the leverage for movement and provides the leverage for movement. In here you have the skeletal system divisions. You have the skeletal system divisions. You have the axial skeleton for the skeletal system divisions. You have the axial skeleton, which is composed of the skull, the spine, and the ribs. The axial skeleton about 80 bones. And then the appendicular skeleton composed of about 126 bones, which is going to be the bones of the shoulder girdle, the pelvic girdle, and the limbs. So you have 5 different types of bones. You have 5 different types of bones in the human skeleton. 5 different types of bones in the human skeleton. You have the long bone, you have the short bone, you have the flat bone, you have the sesamoid bone, and you have the irregular bone. The long bone is going to be long bones such as the ulna and the radius and the femur and the humerus. Support body weight and facilitate movement. The long bones are longer than they are wide, a cylinder shape. Short bones like the carpals and tarsals and metacarpals, cube shape and provide stability and a limited amount of movement. Irregular bones like the vertebrae serves a variety of purposes. Irregular bones like the vertebrae serve a variety of purposes, including protecting vital organs. They have complex shapes like the vertebrae. Sesamoid bones like the patella, the kneecap. The sesamoid bones like the patella and the kneecap are small and round, found in the joints, and within tendons. They reinforce and protect the tendons from stress and wear and tear. They reinforce and protect the tendons from stress and wear and tear. And the flat bones like the scapula and wear and tear. And the flat bones like the scapula and the flat bones like the scapula and the sternum. The flat bones like the scapula and the sternum like the scapula and the sternum protect like the scapula and the sternum protect the internal organs and provide a large surface area for muscles to attach. They are somewhat flat and thin, but may be curved, as in the ribs, as in the ribs, as in the ribs. So joints. A joint is a point where 2 bones meet, like the elbow joint, or the shoulder joint, or the knee joint, the ankle joint, or the knee joint, the kneecap. Joint, a point where 2 bones meet, classified by the type of tissue they contain. Joint is a point where 2 bones meet. They're classified by the type of tissue they contain. You have 3 classifications. You have the fibrous, cartilaginous, and synovial joints. 3 classifications. Fibrous, cartilaginous, and synovial joints. Fibrous are going to be joints joining 2 bones and allow for very little movement. Fibrous allow for very little movement. Joints joining 2 bones allow for very little movement. Cartilaginous, moderately movable joints is going to be cartilaginous, moderately movable joints. And the synovial joints is going to be fluid-filled joints found between bones that move against one another. Synovial joints is going to be fluid-filled joints found between 2 bones that move against one another. You have 6 types of synovial joints. You have the pivot. You have 6 types of synovial joints. You have the pivot, the ball and socket, the hinge, the saddle, the ellipsoid, and the gliding joints. The types of synovial joints, you have the ball and socket, you have the hinge, the saddle, the pivot, the ellipsoid, and the gliding joints. You're going to see the picture in a bit in the workbook. The connective tissues are going to be the tendon, which connects muscle to bone, The tendon connects the muscle to the bone. The ligament connects bone to bone. T is going to connect M to B, TMB. And L connects B to B, LBB. Tendons connects muscle to bone. Ligament connect bone to bone, and the cartilage is gonna found on the ends of the ribs between the vertebral discs, joint surfaces, and in the nose and ears. The cartilage is found in the ends of the ribs, between the vertebrae, in the disc, joint surfaces, and in the nose and ears. And in the nose and the ears. And finally, the muscular system. The muscular system is going to be the last one here. Can only pull, contract. The muscles can only pull and contract. The muscular system controlled by motor neurons. It's going to be controlled by motor neurons, which are going to be efferent. Muscular system controlled by the nervous system, the motor neurons specifically. Muscles can only pull, contract. Muscles contract to move bones. Muscles can only pull. Muscular system is going to be controlled by the nervous system, the motor neurons specifically. Muscles contract to move bones. Muscles can only pull. Now the muscle tissue, you have the cardiac, the smooth and the skeletal. The muscle tissue, you have the cardiac muscle, the smooth muscle, and the skeletal muscle. All three vary in their cellular structure and each have different functions in our body. The muscle tissue, you have the cardiac muscle, the smooth muscle, and the skeletal muscle. All three vary in their cellular structure and each have different functions in our body. The cardiac muscle tissue composes the muscle of the heart. Cardiac muscle tissue composes the muscle of the heart. It's involuntary. It's a smooth. It's involuntary. It's involuntary. Smooth muscles make up the organs that contract and push food. Smooth muscles makes up the organs that contract and push food. It's going to be the most smooth muscle tissue from the digestive system. Involuntary muscle as well. And finally, the skeletal muscle, involuntary muscle as well. And finally, the skeletal muscle is the most common and mostly voluntary. The skeletal muscle is the most common muscle, the skeletal muscle, and the skeletal muscle is the most common muscle type found in the human body. It's mostly voluntary. The skeletal muscle is the most common and mostly voluntary. It's the most common muscle type found in the human body. It's mostly voluntary. Mostly voluntary. It's gonna be attached to bones. It's mostly voluntary. It's gonna be attached to bones. Skeletal muscle is attached to bones. The muscular anatomy, the myofibrils. Muscle fiber also referred to as muscle cells. Tendons attaches muscle to the bone. Muscular anatomy, the myofibril is gonna be the muscle fiber also referred to as a muscle cell. Muscular anatomy, myofibrils. Muscle fiber also referred to as muscle cell. Tendon, yeah, tendons attach the muscle to the bone. The tendon attaches the muscle to the bone. You have calcium, sodium, and potassium exchanged to cause muscle contraction. You have calcium, sodium, and potassium exchanged to cause muscle contraction. Sarcomeres is going to be actin and myosin. Actin is going to be the thin filaments, and myosin is going to be the thick filaments. The skeletal muscle fiber types. You have slow twitch, type 1, versus fast twitch, type 2A and type 2X. Type 1 is going to be ideal for endurance and low intensity, and activities of longer duration, high mitochondria density, and highly fatigue resistant. They have high mitochondria density and highly fatigue resistant. And the fast twitch is going to be type 2A and type 2X. Is going to be they contract quickly and with greater force than with they contract quickly and with greater force than slow twitch fibers. They have lower mitochondria density and they fatigue quickly. They get energy from anaerobic metabolism. They get energy from anaerobic metabolism. Now the muscle fiber arrangement, you have the parallel, the fusiform, the convergent, multipennate, unipennate, and bipennate. You're gonna see this in the workbook. The muscle fiber arrangement, you have the parallel, the fusiform, convergent, multipene, unipene, and bipene. Muscle contractions, you have the brain, the spinal cord, the spinal nerves, the motor neurons, and muscle fibers. For muscle contraction, you have the brain, the spinal cord, the spinal nerves, the motor neurons, and the muscle fibers. The sliding filament theory, you have the actin, the sliding filament theory, you have the relaxed actin T myofilament and myosin thick myofilament sliding past one another. It's going to be sliding filament theory. Relaxed actin T myofilament and myosin thick myofilament. And the muscle recruitment and contraction. Muscle recruitment and contraction, you have an all or none size and size principle, Henneman principle. The muscle recruitment and contraction, you have the all or none size principle, Henneman principle. Muscle recruitment and contraction, you have the all or none size principle, Henneman principle. Slow twitch fibers are recruited first, and fast twitch fibers are recruited last. Once they fire, they are contracting. It's all about the neural input. So the slow twitch fibers are recruited first, and the fast twitch fibers are recruited last. Once they fire, they are contracting. It's all about the neural input. The slow twitch fibers are recruited first, and the fast twitch fibers are recruited last. Once they fire, they are contracting. It's all about the neural input. Now here we're going to see in the workbook. This is going to be the chapter 3 movement systems. Movement systems for chapter 3. Movement systems. The levels of organization in the human body, you have the nervous system, followed by the muscular system, followed by the skeletal system. Explain the nervous system and its two major parts. Consists of the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves, and it is responsible for controlling all voluntary, conscious, or deliberate and involuntary automatic functions of the human body. And the mind. The entire system is of an intricate network that controls and coordinates many body movements and functions via chemical signaling. So the entire system is of an active, intricate network that controls and coordinates many body movements and functions via chemical signaling. The nervous system is divided into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord, and it is the control center of the body and the mind. The peripheral nervous system is the nerves and the ganglia, relay areas for nerve signals outside of the brain and the spinal cord. Outside of the brain and the spinal cord. Responsible for conveying motor commands, carrying sensory information. Responsible for conveying motor commands, carrying sensory information to the central nervous system, and regulating involuntary functions. So they're responsible for conveying motor commands, carrying sensory information to the central nervous system, and regulating involuntary functions. The central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord and is the control center of the body and the mind. And the peripheral nervous system is the nerves and the ganglia, relay areas or nerve cells outside the brain and the spinal cord, responsible for conveying motor commands, carrying sensory information to the central nervous system, and regulating involuntary functions. Now fill the following chart of the central. Fill in the following chart, flowchart of the nervous system. Fill in the following flowchart of the nervous system. You have here the nervous system, the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is the brain that receives and processes sensory information, initiates responses, stores memories, generates thoughts and emotions. And the spinal cord conducts signals to and from the brain, controls reflex activities. And the peripheral nervous system is composed of the motor neurons, which are afferent because they go from the central nervous system to the muscles and glands, and the sensory neurons, which are afferent, which go from the sensory organs to the central nervous system. The motor neurons is divided into the somatic nervous system, which controls voluntary movement, and the autonomic nervous system, which controls involuntary responses. And the autonomic nervous system is divided into the sympathetic division, which is the fight or flight responses, and the parasympathetic division, which is the rest and digest, when the body is at ease. Rest and digest. Now name and explain the three types of muscle tissue found in the human body. These are the three types of muscle tissue found in the human body. From the muscles, it's going to be the cardiac muscle, which is the muscle of the heart. It's going to be involuntary. It's straightened involuntary muscle tissue. Straightened involuntary muscle tissue found in the heart. A smooth muscle, which is going to be that muscle tissue in the gut and internal organs that is involuntarily controlled. Smooth muscle is going to be the muscle tissue in the gut, in the stomach, and internal organs that is involuntarily controlled. And the skeletal muscle is the mostly voluntary muscles attached to bones via tendons, thick fibrous connective tissue that produces human movement. That produces human movement. Now, name and describe the types of muscle fibers. Name and describe the types of muscle fibers. You have the slow twitch type 1 and the fast twitch type 2A and type 2A muscle fibers. Type 1 are ideal for endurance and low intensity activities of longer duration and have high mitochondrial density and are highly fatigue resistant. Type 2A and type 2S contract quickly and with greater force than type 1, fatigue quickly while having low mitochondrial density. And here you have to fill in the names of the types of muscle. You have to fill in the names of the types of muscles. You have the names of the types of muscle. You have the parallel, which is the stolioid. The parallel in stolioid is found in the neck. Fill in the names of the types of muscles. The parallel is going to be the stolioid, which is going to be found in the neck. The fusiform in the biceps brachii. The convergent is going to be the pectoralis major. Multipennate, because if they go to multiple sides, it's going to be the deltoid, it's going to be multipennate. The unipennate is going to be the flexor pollicis longus found in the fingers. Unipennate because they really they don't have anywhere else to go. Unipennate is going to be the flexor pollicis longus, and the bipennate is going to be the soleus. I want to see what is stolioid. Let me Google. The stolioid muscle is one of the muscles of the neck and stretches between the base skull and the hyoid. So that's going to be the parallel. Stolioid, the names on the type of muscle. The parallel is going to be the stolioid. The fusiform, the biceps brachii, the fusiform, the convergent in the pectoralis major, the multipennate in the deltoid, the unipennate, the flexor pollicis longus, and the bipennate is going to be the soleus. Now the number of bones. Now this is going to be for the skeletal muscle. Write the number of bones that compose each of the following. Overall skeleton. So write the names of the bones that compose each of the following. So the overall skeleton has about 206 bones in total. Axial skeleton, divided into axial skeleton, about 80 bones includes the skull, the spine, and the ribs. And the appendicular skeleton is composed of about 126 bones and includes the bones of the shoulder girdle, the pelvic girdle, and the limbs. So let's see from the anterior and posterior sides the following skeletal chart. And the bones that are found. So from the head to the toes, you have the frontal lobe at the anterior side, the parietal lobe at the posterior side. Frontal lobe, parietal lobe, you have here, this is not really important. The zygomatic bone, the orbit in the eye, the maxilla in the teeth, the mandible, the cervical spine, so here the frontal lobe, the zygomatic bone, the orbit, the maxilla in the upper side of the teeth, the mandible, the cervical spine in the neck, the clavicle and the scapula, around the deltoid. The humerus is going to be in the biceps brachii and triceps brachii. The radius, humerus, the radius, the ulna. The radius is going to be longer than the ulna. The carpal bones, which are going to be short bones, the metacarpals and the phalanges. And here after the cervical spine, you have the acromion, which is going to be around the deltoid. the coracoid process inside, around your axilla, the coracoid process. You have the sternum. The sternum is in the muscle of your heart. No, the skeleton of the sorry, the skeleton of your heart is going to be the sternum. This is right here is the sternum. The ribs, the sternum and the ribs. You have the lumbar spine, the thoracic spine, and the cervical spine. The lumbar spine right here. You have the ilium. The ilium is gonna be the hips. The hips. In the hips, like is this is gonna be like a. Let me read. This is gonna be a flat bone. The ilium. The ilium is a flat bone. The sacrum and the pubis. Ilium. The sacrum in the top of the cervix. The sacrum. The pubis is gonna be the ischium around the reproductive areas. The pubic symphysis is going to be around the anus. The cecum and the pubic symphysis. Now, for lower body, you have the femur. The longest bone in your body is the femur. You have the patella, which is the only sesamoid bone. It's going to be like a joint, the ankle joint, the femur, the patella, the fibula. The tibia is longer than the fibula. The fibula is small, the tibia is long. The tibia is that muscle on your anterior tibialis. Is in the bone of the anterior tibialis muscle is the tibia. The fibula is the smaller one. Tarsal bones, metatarsals, phalanges. It's going to be from the anterior side. For the posterior side, you have the parental lobe, the occipital lobe, the parental bone, and the occipital bone. Parental bone and the occipital bone for the posterior side. The parental bone and the occipital bone. You have the atlas and the axis. Parental bone, occipital bone, the atlas and the axis. You have the scapular spine. You know how the cervical spine is at the anterior side. The scapular spine is in the back. The scapular spine, you have the clavicle again, the clavicle, the scapula, which is a flat bone. You have the humerus, the head of the radius, the radius on the ulna. You have the head of the humerus right here. You have the vertebral column, right here, the vertebral column, and the ribs, the vertebral column and the ribs, the sternum, the vertebral column and the ribs. You have the olecranon. Olecranium is the elbow. Olecranium is around the elbow. Around the elbow is going to be the olecranium. Olecranium is around the elbow. The ilium, the sacrum. The ilium again, which is the hips skeleton. The radius, the ulna. You have like for this you don't really need to learn like the bones of the hand. But it's like trigetrum, lunate, scapoid, the trapezium, the trapezoid, the capitate, and the hamate. But you need to learn this, so I won't worry about it. You have the ilium, the acetabulum, the ilium, the acetabulum. I wouldn't worry about this one. The head of the femur, the head of the femur, the head of the femur before the femur, which is the longest bone. The femur, the patella. You have the medial, this is going to be in the backbone. The medial condyle, the lateral condyle, and the tibial plateau. The medial condyle, the lateral condyle, for the patella, in the back of the patella, the medial condyle, the lateral condyle, and the tibial plateau. The head of the tibia and the head of the fibula, the tibia. The medial malleus, lateral malleus, medial malleolus, medial malleolus, lateral malleolus, the talus and the calcaneus. The talus and the calcaneus. So the classification of the following bones, the long bones, like the ulna, the radius, the femur, the humerus. The sesamoid bones is going to be the patella, the kneecap. The patella, the kneecap is going to be the sesamoid bones, the bones that connect to the joints. The short bones like the carpals and the tarsals. Short bones, the flat bones like the sternum and the scapula and the ilium, the one that are made to hold the smooth muscles. The flat bones like the sternum and the scapula to hold internal organs. The sternum and the scapula are going to be the flat bones, although also the ilium as well, and the irregular bones. And you have irregular bones as well that are like the vertebrae, for example. The vertebrae are considered irregular bones. Irregular bones. I believe in here it was saying right like irregular bones. Well, here it is. The vertebrae. So the vertebrae, of course, including projecting vital organs. You have just like the vertebrae. Yeah. A cylindrical shape. Okay. Now the types of joints. Yeah, this is gonna be the last portion right here. Label the types of joints in the body. Let me see when it's gonna die. Okay, the battery is going down real quick. Label the types of joints in the body. The types of joints in the body. You have the pivot joint around the neck. The pivot joint. The ball and socket joint in the freaking shoulder. The pivot joint around the neck, around the mandible, the ball and socket joint around the shoulder, around the clavicle and the scapula, the hinge joint, this is gonna be the hinge joint, the one that connects the biceps femoris, the one that connects the ulna and the radius, with the humerus. I'm not mistaken, right? I got it, bro. Don't doubt yourself. You got it. Don't doubt yourself, bro. You got it. The hinge joint is the one that connects the ulna and the radius with the humerus. The ellipsoid joints is the ones that connects with the hand. The ellipsoid because it makes a movement like a circular motion in the hand. Ellipsoid joints and the saddle joints is in the ones that connect the fingers. The saddle joints. Saddle joints is the one that connect the fingers, the saddle joints, and the gliding joints in the foot. The gliding joint in the foot. So remember, pivot joint around the neck, around the mandible, ball and socket joint in the shoulder, hinge joint in the elbow, ball and socket joint in the shoulder, hinge joint in the elbow, the saddle joint in the fingers, ellipsoid joint, the ellipsoid joint in the hand, and the gliding joint in the foot, in the ankle of the foot. The gliding joint in the ankle of the foot, which is a similar motion to the ellipsoid joint. Tendons connect muscle to bone. Remember that. Define tendon. A tendon connects the muscle to the bone. It serves the mechanical bridge to transmit force created by muscle contraction. Tendon connects muscle to bone. Serve as the mechanical bridge to transmit the force created by muscle contraction. When the muscle shortens or contracts, the tendon transfers that force to the bone at an attachment site. The angle and length of attachment of the tendon to the bone affect how the muscle contracts, how the muscle acts on the affected bone. So the tendon connects the muscle to the bone, serves as a mechanical bridge, transmits the force created by muscle contraction. When the muscle shortens or contracts, the tendon transfers that force to the bone at an attachment site. The angle and length of attachment of the tendon to the bone affect how much the muscle acts on the affected bone. Now in here, that's gonna be the tendon, the affected bone. It's gonna be the tendon right there. Now joint is gonna be the point where two bones meet. The joint is gonna be the point where two bones meet, or articulation point between the two bones. They're classified by the type of tissue they contained. Fibrous, cartilaginous, or synovial joints. Fibrous joint is going to be joined with fibrous connective tissues, joining two bones that allow for very little movement. Cartilaginous joints, moderately movable joints, divided into primary and secondary joints. Cartilaginous joints, moderately movable joints, divided into primary and secondary joints. And synovial joints is going to be fluid-filled joints found in between bones that move against one another. And finally, the ligament connect bone to bone. Ligaments connect bone to bone. Taut bands made of collagen and elastin connecting bone to bone, forming joints. Ligament connect bone to bone. It's going to be taut bands made of collagen and elastin connecting bone to bone and forming joints. They help prevent excessive movements within a joint and may cause damage. The knees, the ankles, the elbows, the shoulders, and shoulders are all supported by ligaments. If a ligament is injured, torn, or disconnected, the associated joint will become highly unstable. So the ligaments connect bone to bone. Taut bands made of collagen and elastin connecting bone to bone, forming joints. They help prevent excessive movement within a joint that may cause damage. They help prevent excessive movement between a joint that may cause damage. The knees, the ankles, the ankles, the elbows, and the shoulders are all supported by ligaments. If a ligament is injured or torn or disconnected, the associated joint will become highly unstable. And that was it for chapter 3, my friends. That was it for chapter 3. The synovial joint move a lot, the continuous moderately, and figures doesn't very little movement. It's gonna be ligament, joint and ligament. Period. Supporting systems. So that is gonna be for movement systems. Now it's gonna be the quiz for movement systems, and then after that we're gonna finish the stream and we're gonna do supporting systems another way, right? So let me see. I want to connect this to do this. My head kind of hurts a little bit. It's normal. Hey, hold up. There's so my head kind of hurts. All right. So movement systems. Which human organ systems are responsible for human movement? They're gonna be the nervous system, the skeletal system, and the muscular system. And let me see how cool. So which human organ systems are responsible for human movements? Nervous system, skeletal system, and muscular system. So which classification of neurons initiate muscle contraction and activate glands? So classification of neurons that initiate muscle contraction and activate glands is going to be the motor neurons. Neurons that initiate muscle contraction and activate glands is going to be the motor neurons. They initiate muscle contraction and activate glands. What is the peripheral nervous system responsible for? Conveying motor commands, carrying sensory information to the central nervous system, and regulating involuntary functions. Where in the brain does most information processing occur? In the cerebral cortex. In the brain does most information processing occur? It's going to be around the cerebral cortex. That's where most of the information processing occur, in the cerebral cortex. What type of muscle is the most common in the human body? The skeletal muscle. Which type of muscle fiber derives energy primarily from aerobic energy pathways? It's going to be the type 1 muscle fibers, mainly from aerobic energy pathways. Which of the following is including the appendicular skeleton? Appendicular skeleton is going to be the shoulder girdle, definitely the pelvic girdle and the shoulder girdle. Which type of bone supports the weight of the body and facilitates movement? The long bones. Type of bones that supports the weight of the body and facilitates movement is going to be the long bones. What does the Golgi tendon organ detect and respond to in a muscle? The Golgi tendon organ responds to changes in muscle tension. What does the Golgi tendon organ detect and respond to in the muscle? This organ responds to changes in muscle tension. The Golgi tendon organ responds to changes in muscle tension. And the anterior cruciate ligament, ACL, and posterior cruciate ligament, PCL, are examples of one type of ligaments, intrinsic ligaments. Intrinsic ligaments. After this, I'm going to read this. Anterior cruciate ligament and posterior cruciate ligament are examples of what type of ligament? Intrinsic ligaments. Intrinsic ligaments. You know why, right? because they are because let me just get the definition here. Only elements are necessary to have. So yeah, there's the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic elements. I don't see picture here. Well, you know what? I just want to learn that the ACL and the ACL and the PCL are examples of intrinsic ligaments. You know, that's mainly the point of that. But anyway, guys, yeah, we're gonna go over supporting systems in a bit. I have to go in in 5 minutes, actually. So that's what we need to see after this supporting systems, which is we're gonna go over the digestive system, integumentary system, lymphatic system, endocrine system, circulatory system, and respiratory system. We're gonna go over those 6 systems uh, to complete this this session. But it's gonna be after a bit. So thank you guys. Let me read this one more time uh, so that you know like the quiz. So which human organ systems are responsible for human movement? Will be the nervous system, skeletal system, and muscular system responsible for human movement. Classification of neurons that initiate muscle contraction and activate glands is going to be the motor neurons. Initiates muscle contraction and activate glands, the motor neurons. What is the peripheral nervous system responsible for? It's going to be to convergent motor commands, carrying sensory information to the central nervous system. And regulating involuntary functions. So converging motor commands, carrying sensory information to the central nervous system, and regulating involuntary functions. Don't be responsible for that. Where in the brain does most of the information processing occur? Where in the brain does most of the sensory information occur? Is going to be in the cerebral cortex. Most information processing occur in the brain in the cerebral cortex. Which type of muscle is the most common in the human body? The skeletal muscle is the most common in the human body. Which type of muscle fiber derives its energy from which type of muscle fiber derives its energy primarily from aerobic energy pathways is going to be the type 1 muscle fibers. Which of the following is including the appendicular skeleton? It's going to be the shoulder girdle, the pelvic girdle, and the limbs. Including the appendicular skeleton, it's going to be the shoulder girdle. Which type of bone supports the weight of the body and facilitates movement? It's going to be the long bones. What does the Golgi tendon organ detect and respond to in the muscle? So what does the Golgi tendon organ detect and respond to in the muscle? This organ responds to changes in muscle tension. The Golgi tendon organ responds to changes in muscle tension. And finally, the anterior cruciate ligament and posterior cruciate ligament examples of what type of ligament? Of intrinsic ligaments. And that's it, bro. That's gonna be the movement systems quiz. Intrinsic ligaments. So yeah, anyway, guys, it's been the Alpha Master, and thank you for watching this study guide for the freaking accredited exam of the National Council Certified Personal Trainer accredited exam. Accredited exam. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in another session. Take care and peace.